Hi, I'm Pat Thatcher.
And I'm Margaret Gifford, and we're from Sotheby's International Realty in Falmouth.
Margaret, I wanted to get away and do some skiing this winter.
And I wanted to get away to the Caribbean.
But guess what? The real estate market in Falmouth is so hot right now.
And the inventory's low, so it's great for sellers.
And mortgage rates are still good, so that's great for buyers. So guess what?
I don't think we should leave Falmouth.
We're going to stay right here.
The 2014 meeting of the Board of Selectmen, and please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we begin our meeting, I want to take a moment of silence so that we can remember Frank Shepard. Some of you may know that he passed away last Sunday. He's been a long-time member of the Falmouth community. He was also very active in the Falmouth community in many, many ways, particularly with back in the 90s. Some of you who were around then will remember what we used to refer to as the steamship wars, when there was a lot of discussion about the ferries and where they were going and where they were coming from and how often they were doing it and so forth. And Frank was a true leader on those issues for several years. It was interesting because when I first came to Falmouth in '79, my husband and I purchased a business in North Falmouth. And I thought, since I didn't know a whole lot about retailing, I probably should learn something about retailing. So I took a course at Cape Cod Community College back in '79, and the person sitting next to me in the classroom was Frank Shepard. And so that's how I got to know him. And some of you have probably read the obituary that was in the paper the last couple of days and know of the great experiences he has had, not only here but around the world. So let us take a moment and remember him. Thank you. So I don't think we have any announcements tonight. And we don't have any proclamations either, except that we want to proclaim that Thanksgiving Day is Thursday, and we hope that everyone has a wonderful family time and enjoys it immensely. So we'll begin with public comment. Is there anyone who wishes to speak on any item not on the agenda? Yes, sir.
ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jonathan Snyder. I'm from North Falmouth. I am also Vice Chairman of the Solid Waste Advisory Committee. However, this evening, all of my remarks are strictly personal opinions. I'm not representing the committee in any way, shape, or form tonight. I just want to voice my own opinion on a few items. Just bear with me for a moment. Last Monday afternoon at noontime, a week ago, I had a chance to look at the new proposal for improvements to the waste management facility, otherwise known as the dump or drop-off center.
Excuse me, that is on the agenda tonight, so it really isn't appropriate that you comment on it. If you want to comment on it, you're welcome to do it at the time that we bring it up. There will be public comment.
All right.
And I see Ms. Favreau here tonight, and I know that we have on our discussion later sort of a recap of town meeting, and we specifically mentioned White Pine Lane. But that's not going to be for public discussion, that's a board discussion. So I would invite you to make a few comments under public comment. So you have 3 minutes under public comment. You're welcome.
I want to thank you all, not only for tonight, but also at the town meeting. It was a wonderful experience being there for 2 whole nights. You guys must be really tired. But it was, I don't even know how to explain, to find out that it was written wrong, which I didn't write it. All I knew is that I was looking for the town to take over a road over White Pine Lane because of the fact that it's a throughway. It is not a private road anymore, especially since the 2 sober houses were put around the corner from White Pine Lane. There is tremendous traffic. There is tremendous wear and tear on the road. And for the town meeting members to come forward and to vote for the town to take over this street was I can't even explain how happy I was. And then to have some discussions about how it wasn't done right or anything, I was under the impression that I was doing it right. It says right here on Article 30 that I was looking for the town to take over the street, especially because it's a throughway. And I was under the understanding that I could bypass the betterment because it's used mainly by other people and a lot of other people. So I just wanted just to review some of the points that I made then. One of them is because, you paved half the street already. So you paved it roughly around 300 feet. There's 300 feet more. You took care of 6 homes. There's 4 left.
You have 1 minute left. It's okay.
Okay. What I want to, also there's special needs buses on that street, 2 of them that are going back and forth, and they're deep holes. And if you could please consider this in a timely manner so that we can get this done and we can get our mailboxes off of Sandwich Road too. And we can't do that unless you take over the street and to make the repairs. So I want to thank you so much, and I especially want to thank the town meeting members. They really made me very happy that night. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Yes, in the front.
Virginia Butler, 19 White Pine. I spent the afternoon in the library looking up the town meetings, and I couldn't find anything on the paper that Joni had shown you in 1973 as to being denied. I wanted to know what happened. Wasn't any mention of it, of anything like that until 1975, and that's when the town bought property from 4 different individuals. Apparently, they said that it was for a drainage problem, and that's the part of the road that is blacktop. But I just don't understand measurements maybe, but they took it in 3 parcels, 1,248 square feet, 1,257, and 10,964. Now, I am guessing that might be 40-foot width, but if it's 10-foot width, that would have been the whole entire road. So in other words, I'm pointing out that maybe the town did buy it since they never did list the road back then. Now in '78, it was listed as not taken. But what happened from '73 when it was presented to them? That's my question. And at least the town owns half the road. Why not the whole road?
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Thank you. My name is Rob Reynolds. I've been a resident for over 40 years. I'm president of the Zephyr Education Foundation, and I'd like to speak in favor of the school increase to the school budget. I think we're underfunded here. I am particularly familiar with the science in town. As Zephyr Education Foundation hosts field trips to Woods Hole for schools all over Massachusetts, well, eastern Massachusetts. And we get a lot of schools come to Falmouth, to Woods Hole, but it's very difficult to get the local schools here. In fact, we subsidize entirely Lawrence schools, 4 trips this year to Woods Hole. We in fact donated money to pay for their buses because the schools don't even have the money to the buses to bring the kids down to Woods Hole. Other schools from other districts as well as off Cape apparently have enough money to come down and pay our boat. We have a boat fee. Falmouth schools don't pay that boat fee. One exception is the high school this year where they did ask the students to contribute, and fortunately they did, but they contributed a portion of it. So we heavily subsidize Falmouth public schools, particularly in the science area is what I'm familiar with. My understanding is that for the high school, for example, the science budget, not the teacher budget, but for supplies and equipment, is between $5 and $10 a year per student, which I think is unbelievably low. So I would just like to encourage consideration of additions to the school budget, probably across the board. I'm very familiar with the science budget and know that we are underfunded here. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Then we'll move on to our regular agenda, which is the minutes of November 10th, 2014 public session. Any comments, corrections, changes? Sam?
I move approval as submitted.
I believe I have one correction, but I may be wrong in my correction. Mr. Cunha, I think his name is C-U-N-H-A,
That's right.
not Y-A, just in the spelling of his name for that.
Is that it?
So with that correction, I'll second Sam's motion.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous, the motion carries. The next are the minutes of executive session on November 10th, 2014. And since this is still ongoing,
One of the collective bargaining is for the Consolidated Dispatch on the real property for both King Street and Town Hall. Those we can release later when we get to them, is that correct?
right, I would say yes.
Okay. I move approval of the executive session minutes on the collective bargaining Consolidated Dispatch reorganization plan
And not release.
and not release.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous, the motion carries.
And I would move approval of the executive session minutes on the real property, item number 2, for both King Street and Town Hall Square, and release those.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Unanimous, the motion
And
carries.
the third item, I would move approval of executive session minutes, item 3, under real property, Falmouth Country Club, and not released.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous, the motion carries. So now we will move to licenses. And the first license is the request for a change of Sunday hours at MZ Enterprises, Inc., doing business as the Falmouth Food Mart and Liquor, 414 East Falmouth Highway. And this is to change the hours back, or to
To the 10 o'clock hours
10
instead of
o'clock
the
hours,
12,
right.
because of Sunday.
because of a change, the ABCC has now uniformly allowed package stores to move their times back, to increase the hours, in other words, and it's pretty much a blanket. So a motion to approve, and
I move approval of the request for the change in hours for MZ Enterprises for Sunday hours.
a second. Okay,
I'd
Becky?
like to have just a short discussion
Sure.
about it. I know that we have done this with other businesses in town, but I have heard different people, residents, not really happy with it. And I said, well, the issue is we cannot be selective at the point of when we have done it for some. And I have the same reasons I had previously, but I am just making a statement that some residents are not pleased with an earlier opening and serving alcohol.
Well, this is a public hearing, and if people are not pleased with it, they should come to our meeting, which is a public hearing, and state their reasons for being opposed to a change in the hours. So is there anybody here who would like to speak in opposition to moving the hours back to 10 a.m. on Sunday? No.
I'll reiterate, I think this will be the third or fourth time I've said this. This is one change we actually can't not approve. The ABCC will not allow us not to approve these.
They have already approved it. This is a pro forma on our part. It's really to have the public hearing so people can comment, but it's also already pre-approved by the ABCC. So do we have a motion? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. The next is, again, the change in Sunday hours for Falmouth Wine and Spirits, John's Liquor Store at 729 Main Street.
I move approval of the request for Falmouth Wines and Spirits for Sunday hours change.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. The motion carries. And the third is the change in hours. This is a specific request from Jack's Restaurant. They just received a new license for their restaurant on Gifford Street, and at the time, they requested a 12 a.m. closing. They are now requesting that closing be extended to 1 a.m. So that is the requested change.
And that's for this calendar year.
And that's from now until December 31st of 2014. If he wishes to make a further change under a new license, those new licenses are now being accepted in the Selectman's office, and we will probably be voting on those sometime in the next week or two for the year beginning January 1, 2015 through December 31st. But this is for the remainder of this year, which is really like 1 month. So we have a motion and a second.
I just wanted to see if he is actually coming up tonight
Is he here?
on the,
No.
because we do have some of the liquor licenses later tonight, but he is not renewing his license as of tonight.
Okay.
So the application must be coming in later.
Excuse me,
Yeah.
Mr. Jones, would you say that last sentence again?
We do have a list of licenses coming up tonight for renewal. He is not
For
on
next
that
year.
list. There's still time for them to come in. We don't do them all on one night. We probably will have him in the next night, or the next time we have licenses, if he gets it in on time.
Thank you.
Do we have any testimony as to what the change is, or why the change is?
No, we don't. He's just requesting, probably because most people do stay open till 1 a.m.
And the police department report was that there was no problem
There
with
were
the
no
request.
issues with the extended hour.
I move approval of the request of change of hours from 12 a.m. to 1 a.m.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. Okay, next we'll move to administrative orders. The first is to accept a donation totaling $10,000 to the Marine and Environmental Services donation account for the Green Pond dredging. The town is interested in dredging Green Pond and has contracted with the county to perform the dredging. I don't know exactly when that's going to take place. Do you, Mr.
I don't have the date on that either, Madam Chair.
Okay. But we received a wonderful donation of $10,000 to help pay for this, which is great. And we thank the donor, and I'm sure Marine Environmental Services are very happy to receive the donation. So a motion to approve the acceptance of the donation?
What
Yep.
cost does that require us to put forward? I mean, I guess I'm a little concerned as to whether, is that our top list during, was Green Pond the next thing we're going to do? And we are already going to do the remainder of the cost of that, or is that covering the entire cost of the Green Pond dredging?
I don't know.
I believe this is just supplemental,
I
Selectman Jones. Don't think we have anything specifically from MES Director Frazier on that.
It's $22,000.
I mean, my question would be is, for instance, if we were not going to do it because it was not our top priority, would this bump it up to our top priority and would be a way of, by donations, people affecting the order in which we do things and getting what they want done first?
To the best of my knowledge, this would not affect the relative priority that our Marine Environmental Services Director sets on dredging, because that is based on an analysis of need, but I believe Green Pond is on the list.
Okay.
But I don't believe it would affect its position.
Okay, great.
It takes quite a while, once you put in your request for dredging. It takes a while. I think that it requires review by the Concom, and it requires getting onto the dredge schedule. I mean, there's only one dredge, so it isn't easy to get it, and the times that the dredge can be utilized are very limited during the time of year because of all the other environmental issues. So I would imagine that it's in the slot, and this was just some very generous contributions from people who live in the Green Pond area who were very willing to support the dredging project, so.
Madam Chair,
I
just a
think
further
one-
clarification. I note the cooperative agreement Heather's pointed out that is attached indicates a total cost of $22,000 for Green Pond, so.
At a maximum.
Yes, so that would be a sub-element of that amount. But again, I know that there is some considerable background work done prior to setting those priorities, and we can certainly provide an updated report from Greg Frazier if it would be the board's desire.
Yeah, I would think that this has been in the pipeline because it takes a while to get on that dredge list, and it probably would be helpful to know exactly when that dredging will take place.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Is it appropriate to announce the names of the donors?
Yes, absolutely. They didn't ask that their names not be mentioned, so if you'd like to read them, that would be very nice.
Sure. The request from Mike Kinney mentions the donation was from the following people: Steve Augusta, John and Valerie Rowe, Bruce and Jean Screen, Nancy and James Mitchell, Gary and Janet Bacon, Kenneth and Patricia Zimble, Harry Turner.
And we thank them for their generosity, surely.
I would move to accept the donations totaling $10,000 for the purposes of the Green Pond dredging.
Second.
Any further discussion?
I think it was very important for you to make mention of the fact that you need to get on the list before. I think that's most important, whether you're thinking about the 10,000 going toward the 22,000, it's get your name on the list. And that basically to me is the reason I vote for this.
Right, thank you. Did we vote? Yeah, we voted. We did not vote? No. Oh, okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you. Okay, then the second item here is to actually approve, or to authorize the town manager to execute the agreement for dredging between Barnstable County and the town of Falmouth for the Green Pond project. And you have a copy of the agreement there. Any discussion on the motion?
I move that the town manager be authorized to execute the agreement for dredging services between Barnstable County and the town of Falmouth for Green Pond project.
Okay.
Second?
Second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. Now, the next item is to add signatures to a letter from Environment Massachusetts to the governor-elect in support of solar energy. We received a request from Jessica Colarossi. Is she here by any chance tonight? She's involved with Environment Massachusetts, and they have a statewide grassroots effort to push solar energy and solar projects, and they are asking local officials around the Commonwealth to support this effort and to sign a letter, as you heard, to the governor-elect to encourage him to support the solar energy projects that are now before the various towns in the Commonwealth. So the question is, would you like to add our names to this letter?
On that item, I looked up the Environment Massachusetts website, and there's some, they edited the letter just to make it more compelling today. You can see it online. And some of the statistics are that Massachusetts has the potential to produce twice as much electricity from solar power as the state consumes each year. And so it goes along with the need to be less dependent on foreign oil, for one thing, and to look at more green forms of energy. So I'm very interested in supporting that.
Okay. Anybody else have a comment? Is there a motion? Sam?
I move that we join this petition, I guess is the right way to describe it, on behalf of the town of Falmouth.
And sign the letter to the governor-elect?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. The next item is to approve a letter to Mass DOT about and that's Department of Transportation, about the Route 151 28A intersection in North Falmouth. Some of you may be aware that the state has plans to improve that intersection, and there was a meeting between town officials and Mass DOT a few weeks ago, and Mass DOT has come up with a design for a so-called roundabout as a possibility for that intersection, as well as having it signalized as it has been in the past. And there's been a lot of discussion and a lot of public comment about a roundabout. Some of you who travel from here to Barnstable may drive around a couple of roundabouts at Catuit Road and at Route 149 in Marston's Mills, and at Route 149 and Route 6. There are 3 roundabouts, depending on how you go. And they're all of them, they were 4-way intersections, 4-way stop signs. And the roundabouts have improved the flow of traffic immensely. I take them like 3 or 4 days a week. I go through at least 2 of them. And they work very, very well. But when you look at the intersection at Route 151 and 28A, it's an entirely different kind of intersection. Some of the other areas where the roundabouts are, there's nothing there. It's just you just drive through. There's no commercial activity. They're really residential areas. This intersection has a great deal of commercial activity on 3 corners already, and a possibility of the fourth corner also having a commercial enterprise there. So it seems from what I have heard, I wasn't present at the hearing, but my understanding is that the general feeling is that we are not in favor of a roundabout, and we want to support the idea of a signalized intersection for many reasons. Mr. Suso, did you want to comment on that?
Yes, thank you. That's correct, Madam Chair. I'm just passing out a copy of, there were a couple suggested minor adjustments to the original draft letter presented to the board for your consideration, and with the board's concurrence, those are, there was a phrase added at the end of bullet or point number 4 on page 2, and a sentence or phrase added at the end of point number 5 also on page 2. And the revised version of that is what I just passed out to the board. With your concurrence, this would send, I believe, a strong message from the Board of Selectmen and myself as well as town manager, because as the board's aware, this also reflects the public safety opinion of our police chief, our fire chief, and our town engineer, as well as other officials, myself included, in the town, that feel that this should remain a signalized intersection, but be designed and implemented in a state-of-the-art way to provide maximum safety, particularly given that it's been a signalized intersection, I've been reminded, for over 60 years. So unlike other locations in the Commonwealth where roundabouts have been cited, as Madam Chair has pointed out, these have been locations by and large, if not totally, that had pre-existing stop signs or flashing lights, but not historic signalized intersections. So there are a variety of additional safety-related reasons that are enumerated in the letter, and I certainly recommend the board's favorable consideration.
Doug?
One of the points that Mr. Suso makes in the letter, which I think is very well taken, is that these roundabouts do work fairly well with traffic that is the same traffic on a daily basis, and they actually learn how to drive around them. This is an intersection with our difference between our winter traffic, our summer traffic, seasonal traffic, and the young people traffic that isn't going to be able to actually benefit from that learning curve. And I thought that was a very astute point to add. In addition to the fact that it's commercial, we have a fire station nearby, we have the Science Bikeway nearby, all those other things that just make it a very complicated intersection.
Sam?
Yeah, I'd say that the bikeway was a big factor for me. And of course, there are restaurants on the opposite side of 28A from the bike path. And crossing a roundabout in a bicycle becomes a problematic thing. I mean, so they had suggested that they actually move the crosswalk back a vehicle distance back from the actual circle itself. But what about a tractor trailer? It was not what I would consider to be a clean design. And in looking at it all, that particular intersection, I think the existence of the Shining Seas bike path in close proximity just raises a whole set of different issues and potential threats to people's well-being.
And I just wanted to thank the public safety folks, as well as Peter McConaty, for all of the study that they gave to this proposal by the state. And it should also be noted that there is no other intersection with the seasonal traffic where the state has done the roundabout type of renovation. So they really didn't even have an example like Falmouth to point to. So the town administration really came together and made some terrific points with this letter, and I hope it works. So appreciate all of your efforts and study.
Does anyone want to make a comment on this? Maybe you weren't at the hearing either, but if you're interested, we're happy to hear from you. No? Okay, so,
I move that the letter be
Becky
signed.
has a question.
Sorry, I didn't see it.
I'll just add on to what you're just saying. I think the point that the public should know about this is the fact that I think that the Department of Transportation chose that intersection, and probably without Falmouth asking for it. And as they presented, they absolutely compared our area in North Falmouth with areas that are in a country setting. And I have driven around several of those. I still call them rotaries. I've driven around those in the country area, and it is nothing like our North Falmouth. But there seemed to be, they were trying to fit their ideas maybe to our community. And I think that was the part of it that was most disturbing to me, because we didn't ask for this. It came right into our town, and we needed to deal with it. So I believe this letter, as I read the one before this was adjusted, has said in very strong terms that it's not an area to bring a new rotary. And one of the things I'll tell you that is most interesting, and if you're a driver as long as I have been, I have a certain way of when I see a red light. And if I see a red light, there's a certain place that I know I'm going to stop. On this roundabout, it would come back a distance. So if there happened to be a bicycle that was going through that rotary, that was another issue. But the bicycle was also on brick. It wasn't on flat cement. So I thought, well, that's a terrible place to put the bicycles. So there were new rules. If you are on any of these new rotaries, there are new rules. There's new rules that are out at railroad crossings. You'll have a stop sign here and a sign here that tells you to go up to the stop sign, and you've already crossed the railroad tracks. So I put a lot of this together from the Department of Transportation. They were looking for an area to put this roundabout, and they chose our little North Falmouth. And I think the people in Falmouth definitely deserve to have their voice heard, because I think what is coming from the Department of Transportation will not be as comfortable as the way we handle things ourselves.
Okay. Any other comments? So we need a motion to approve the letter.
I move approval of the letter to the Mass DOTT about the 15128A intersection.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Great. Now, the rest of it will be as easy as this vote, right? Okay, the last item under administrative orders is to approve and execute the petition for special legislation. And this has to do with the recent town meeting, where town meeting voted to approve special legislation regarding the spending of the monies appropriated at the ballot for wastewater. And included in that is the need to be able to expend funds to purchase the grinder pumps for the people in the Little Pond area, sewer service area, that are going to need grinder pumps because they won't be eligible for the other low-pressure flow. So this requires special legislation because bond counsel has informed us that we cannot expend public funds on private property. And we know in the past that the way to accomplish that is to request special legislation to be able to do that, and that's what this is. So this says, we, the undersigned members of the Board of Selectmen of the Town of Falmouth and the County of Barnstable, forward to the General Court a certified copy of Article 1, passed at the special fall town meeting held on November 18, 2014, in said town, and petition the General Court to take the requested action relative thereto. And a certified copy of Article 28 of the April 7th, 2014 annual town meeting that refers to Article 1 is also enclosed. So we need a motion to approve this petition to the General Court.
On the Article 1 that we have a true copy attest, to bring back the point, it does still have just the language sewer system, not sewer and or wastewater system, which is I think what we actually voted at town meeting.
We did?
Yes, correct.
So that would be the second to the last sentence that ends in to connect each property to the town's sewer system / wastewater.
So it's sewer and or wastewater
And
systems.
or wastewater
I think what we
system.
actually voted at town meeting.
So we could actually just change that.
Correct. We'll ask that that be adjusted and
Okay.
transmitted once again from the town clerk.
Thank you.
So a motion, Sam?
I move that we petition the General Court of Commonwealth of Massachusetts as you have read out.
Okay.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous, and we'll make that one correction.
Thank you.
It won't be on any of the signature documents, so we can go ahead and sign them.
Legislation is just in.
Okay, next under public hearings, we now have a public hearing on the 2015 tax allocation and classification hearing. Sometime in the past, you may remember that we didn't do this at selectmen's meetings. We used to have a special meeting, like at 5 in the afternoon on a Tuesday or something like that. But now we're including this hearing within the selectmen's meeting so that all of you can understand how this works in terms of setting the tax rates for the town. Trish or Jennifer, you want to start? Jennifer Petit, yes, Finance Director.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to give a general overview of the tax classification hearing. Our assessor will come up after I'm done speaking, and we'll walk you through a series of votes that the Board of Selectmen, and I believe the backup information was in your packet of the votes that you'll be looking at and taking this evening. When we approach setting the tax rate, if you will, really what we're doing is we're sending our balanced budget to the Department of Revenue. And they've looked at our values, and they've approved our values, and we give them all of our appropriations in the last year, and they really look at the levy and make sure that we're in the levy limit. So it's really a series of procedures that we do go through. And the final procedure is to come in front of the Board of Selectmen and look at adopting possibly a factor of 1, which has been adopted in the past, which is a single tax rate. But I just wanted to give a brief overview of, that really is what we're doing when we're setting the tax rate. We're submitting all our information to the Department of Revenue of what we voted for appropriations in the last year. They've looked at our values, and they really just set what our tax levy is. So I didn't know if you had any questions regarding that, and I can call our assessor up, and she can walk you through the votes.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Could you explain a little bit about the revision term that's used here, in trying to interpret, and you said the factor of 1 is the revision that we would be, or at least the Board of Assessors is recommending that we approve.
That's correct.
Right? But what was the purpose of that when the state created that as a possible way of modifying these tax assessments?
Do you mean the difference between the commercial property and the residential property? Adopting a factor of 1 is really adopting a single tax rate, and you're not you're so-called splitting the tax rate between commercial and residential. And in Falmouth, we do have a small commercial base, and traditionally we've been keeping it, instead of burdening the commercial property with a higher rate, and that's really what you're doing. Larger communities, Worcester, communities,
Boston.
will have a split tax rate, so they can shift the rate. You're not raising more taxes, but what you're doing is you're shifting the rate to the commercial base. And Falmouth has traditionally always adopted a factor of 1, which is a single tax rate.
And when you say a large community, it's not only the size of the community, it's the relative size of
the
commercial to
base.
residential.
That's correct.
And since the commercial is only about 5% of our tax base, and the residential is 92%, that's the reason we've always thought the residential should keep on the burden.
Thank you for that clarification.
Fiscal 2015 is also revaluation year, and the Department of Revenue started working in April. They came in and started their study of the town and also reviewed the assessor's workload and the classification of the property within the town. So they've been through the town and have done a thorough study of all of our values, and we passed with stellar color, which was a very nice feeling as a department head within the town. Cities and towns that are certified the commissioner as assessing at full and fair cash value may elect to shift the tax burden, which Den has explained to you. And the Board of Assessors are recommending to you as a board that we stick with the 1, so that we don't burden our commercial base and our second homes. Along with the split tax rate, we also are looking to not adopt the residential exemption, which would carry to about 13,000 residents of the town that would qualify for that. Again, by doing that, would shift the burden of the tax over to the second homeowners. They currently are already carrying a second tax on their properties, so we would burden them with an additional tax value on their primary tax. Your also exemption that they're recommending that you do not pass is a small business exemption. We don't have enough small businesses in the town to make that a fruitful exemption to them. And the last exemption which they're recommending denial on is an open space exemption. Currently in the town of Falmouth, we have already done an exemption per se on open space. We value it very, very low. So there wouldn't be a need for the open space exemption. So considering the analysis and the fiscal impact, the Board of Assessors recommends to the Board of Selectmen a factor of 1 and reject the residential, open space, and small business exemption. So if you have any questions, you have all of this information in your packet. I would answer any questions if you have any.
Well, I just have a comment. That I happened to attend a a meeting of all the Cape Selectmen. Maybe it was 3 years ago, it was on Nantucket. And it had to do with the residential exemption, because Nantucket adopted the residential exemption several years ago. And as you can imagine, they have a great deal of second homes on Nantucket. And it does, in fact, increase the tax burden to that second homeowner. And it decreases the tax burden to the year-round residential. And I think it was around that same time, I think, that the town of Barnstable adopted the residential exemption as well. It's something that's out there, but it isn't something you adopt at a meeting like this. It's something that you get a lot of public input about, and you have a lot of discussion, and so that people in the community really know and understand exactly what it is. So I would never advise that we even consider it at a meeting at this time, but at some time in the future, if people in the community have any interest in it, they can always express it. Either way, either they like the idea or they don't like the idea. But it is out there as a possibility for year-round homeowners. Just wanted to make that comment, Becky.
What kind of a timeline are you on? I mean, if we look at this and we say we're not voting for this as such, everything remains the same as it is right now as far as our split rate? We don't have our factor of one, it just stays the same?
Right, if we don't, you want to vote a factor of one. If you don't vote a factor of one, all of this information would have to be studied, which would stop sending out tax bills in a timely manner in the next 30 days.
And we have normally had the factor of one?
That's correct.
Okay. And what kind of a timeline are you on?
Tonight.
The bills will go to print in about 1 week.
Tonight is.
Okay, all right.
This is usually like, it's kind of almost predetermined, if you will, unless we were going to make major changes to either splitting it between residential and commercial or considering a residential exemption. It's kind of like you just do it because there's really no other options.
You'd have to do a very large study.
Study,
and
absolutely.
At least a year worth of work to determine
Yeah, at
any
least-
of these.
At least a year in advance. Yeah, and we're not there, so. Okay. So,
How many motions do we need? Can we do it in one, or do you need?
You can do one motion.
one motion. Yeah.
Okay. I would move that we accept a factor of one and deny the split tax rate, the residential exception, the small business exemption, and the open space exemption.
I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
Thank you, Tricia, for all your hard work. And your fellow
Okay,
department members.
we're just going to take a minute to get these. Oh, yeah.
819,
Yeah, can you confirm the tax rate? for the-
819.
819 for
$8.19.
$8.19 per thousand?
Yes.
Right.
So you can get your calculators out.
What is this one? It's right here.
There's no place for us to sign it.
Oh, there is?
It's only for the officials.
Oh. That's what the county commissioners, I didn't even notice that. I just saw my name.
I'm surprised there's no place for us to sign it.
Yeah, how come we don't sign the Georgia agreement?
Oh, you authorized me to sign it.
Oh, okay.
That's right.
If you, just give them to Trish when you're done.
You just didn't date your signature, so I was going to pass it back just.
They usually do it.
Did they? Okay.
Mary Pat, you're not on it?
Did I sign it?
Yep, just the dates for this. Trish will take care of it.
She'll put the date on it.
Okay, yeah.
That's not hers. Oh, no.
it needed to go back.
Thanks.
She has to read this one, so. It's okay.
Thanks for helping out.
I'm sure they're all on this one.
You all set?
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Thank you. Okay, now, the highlight of the evening. We have Ray Jack, our Director of Public Works. We're going to talk about a solid waste synopsis and a waste management facility site plan. Ray. Welcome. See a lot of interested people here in solid waste. And thanks for providing this to us in advance. It was very helpful
Yes,
to have the opportunity to read it.
you're welcome. The purpose of the presentation this evening is to provide the board with a solid waste update. We had, on some of our major components of the solid waste system, we're going to be having a couple of major events that are going to occur very shortly, so provide you with information on that. Earlier this year, the town had engaged the services of Mr. Wayne Melville, who was a former town manager for Manchester, and he currently works for GovTemps USA. So he worked with the Department of Public Works to develop some background information and statistical information and recommendations with regard to the waste management facility and solid waste overall. That report has been provided to the board along with the update synopsis, which I have provided. The biggest issue this evening, however, is the waste management facility itself. We're looking to get the board's endorsement on the site layout, meaning a different layout than what currently exists out there. I think that most people, I'm not sure that everyone on the board is intimately aware of the recent history of the facility with regard to the last several years. But in 2006, the town had engaged the firm of Weston & Sampson to do a report and study of the facility. There were a number of recommendations that came out of that report. We appropriated $200,000 in 2008 at town meeting in order to be able to move forward with some of those recommendations. Since that time, we worked closely with our consulting engineers, Weston & Sampson, as well as the members of the Solid Waste Advisory Committee, to revise the facility layout to what you're going to see this evening. So the hope is that we will be able to move forward with that layout and site plan so we can submit it to DEP. We cannot perform any work out there, make any improvements out there or enhancements out there without their approval. So it's been a fairly long time, and we believe that now would be the time for the town to move forward. So I have a very short presentation. That would be followed by a short presentation by Peter McConerty, our town engineer, with regard to the site layout. Mr. Mike Richards, who is a project manager for Weston & Sampson, our consulting engineers, is here this evening as well, so we're all here to answer any questions that you may have. Okay?
Can I just ask a preliminary question? Can you just provide some context about what the ultimate use or goal or what's the punchline here? What are we going for? Or do you use it like board is used, or?
No, it's kind of actually at the end of my presentation. It's kind of at the end of Mr. McConerty's presentation. But I would say that overall, the facility is a service-oriented facility. At least that's the way we look at it. So the goal is to try to make it more user-friendly, provide the necessary services, predominantly waste-band items, meaning it's not really supposed to be a trash facility. It's not really supposed to be a cardboard, paper, and bottle facility, because those are all available at curbside. Its actual original intent and purpose was for the items that you cannot dispose of at curbside. So that's its principal purpose. Now, what we're proposing this evening, as far as a layout, will enhance the operations that we currently have and provide the ability for whatever the town's future operations out there may be. So it's very visionary, if you will, to accommodate what we have and what we may have in the future. So it had to have a lot of thought behind it to ensure that that would be able to happen, because there are a wide range of options for the town. I mean, you could shut it down, you could expand the operation, you can maintain it as it is and enhance it. So you could go into a public-private partnership, you could go into a private partnership, period. There's a number of different options that have been discussed in the past. It's been our consensus that for all intents and purposes, it's a Falmouth facility that acts as a Falmouth service center. So that is the goal that we have, but it would be able to handle any of the other uses that I just described as well.
Thank you, appreciate that.
These are really our primary components that we have. There are four. First, we have disposal. And when we're talking about MSW here, that means municipal solid waste. So it's one of those DEP acronyms that they love to throw around. It's actually a misnomer, however. Municipal solid waste is everything a town throws away. So it's really not just trash, okay? But the common term would be trash. So whenever you hear MSW in this context, that's what we're really referring to. So we have to be able to get rid of it. Then we also have to be able to collect it. So we have our curbside collection, and Falmouth is one of the few towns that actually has a full range of services curbside with respect to trash and recycling. So the trash is weekly and the recycling is bi-weekly. Then we have the Upper Cape Regional Transfer Station. I'll be talking about each of these individually, but that is a regional facility that currently resides on the MMR. It is accessed along Sandwich Road through the town of Falmouth. The other entrances that would have been available to it from the base were closed off years ago. So this is the primary access is through the town for that facility. And its purpose for the Upper Cape Consortium was to provide a repository for all of the trash so that it could be processed and put on the rail cars and moved by rail to CMAS, which back in the 1980s, one of the primary considerations then, as is now, is truck traffic. Then we have the waste management facility itself. That's our former landfill. The waste management facility, as we know it today, as a service type of operation, was developed in the early 1990s, 1993, and it has undergone very few changes since that time, and one of the reasons why we're here this evening is it's time for an overhaul. So, as far as our disposal goes, we had a long-term 25-year contract arrangement with CMAS. Made sense for Falmouth, made sense for a lot of communities. One of the problems that you're facing as a board and the town would be facing as a whole was an inordinately low disposal rate. That disposal rate at the present time is about $37 a ton under our existing contract. What had happened was in 2008, in anticipation of the end of life of the contract now, which is the end of 2014, CMAS had proposed to the various towns, and there were 29 Council of CMAS communities that were part of the original conglomerate when they came in, to voluntarily escalate their rates during the existing contract up to $77 a ton by this time, 2015, in order that the town would then have another long-term contract at below market rates. What we did, as well as other communities, of course, we negotiated with CMAS, but we sought out whatever other opportunities there could conceivably be, even transporting trash out of state. In the end, we concluded a very favorable contract with the town of Bourne at $58 a ton. So that is where on January 1st, our trash would be going. And the contract with CMAS would then expire on December 31st of this year. Well, excuse me, could you just back up one for a second here? When I talk about the rate of $37 a ton and then $27 a ton net because it's subsidized, that's the Mass Technology Park Corporation that back in 2000, they were required to put in extensive upgrades at CMAS for clean air technologies. And in order that the rates wouldn't go up for the respective communities, Falmouth was one of the towns that basically got a subsidy of about $1.2 million that was to be apportioned over the term of the contract, all the way up till right now. So the actual rate is a little over $37 a ton, But then what we've been paying all of this time is closer to $27, $28 a ton. So the sticker shock may seem a little bit higher. For our curbside collection, we had a 5-year contract. We had a 5-year contract previous to this. It expires this coming year in 2015. There are opportunities for 2 1-year extensions on that contract, and that will be a decision of the board at a later date. The contract contains an annual 3% escalator across the board. That is for both the trash as well as the recyclable component of the contract. The recyclables are about $515,000 a year and $1.2 million on the trash side, and that's logical because trash is collected weekly and recycling is collected bi-weekly. So it's reflective of the cost. This is an example of what our average ton would be. So it's about 11,000 tons per year for the trash and 2,600 tons per year on the recyclables, and that overall gives us about a 21% recycling rate at the present time. The transfer station. As I indicated earlier, it was established for a consortium of the Upper Cape communities, and that included Falmouth, Bourne, Mashpee, Sandwich, and Otis. So the member towns have a board of managers where there's a representative from each of the town that meet monthly. They manage the facility, and the respective towns pay costs into a kitty, which we hang on to. The kitty resides in the town of Falmouth, so we pay all the bills for the facility, and it's based on what their apportioned use of the facility is. So I have to calculate all the percentages of use of each town twice a year in order to do respective calculations. We currently pay approximately 55% of the operating expenses for that facility, so we are by far the largest user. All of the material comes in there by truck, and the way it's supposed to work is all of it's supposed to leave by rail unless we have an incident. So there's times when the rail tipper over at CMAS fails, in which case we have to go to trucking, or we could have other rail problems, rail-related problems, in which case we would have to go to trucking. And I mention that because that's what's happening right now. We only had another month to go, and the tipper is down. So we're into a trucking event at the present time. But generally speaking, the material leaves the facility by rail. Will close at the end of this year. When it does, the O&M costs, and they usually range about $160,000 a year for the town of Falmouth. So those costs go away. The rail transport costs, which are generally over $220,000 a year, also go away. So although we're going to have an increase in our actual disposal tonnage cost, and there's going to be some increase in additional transport because the hauler is going to be going several extra miles in order to go to Bourne versus the transfer station, there's going to be some offsetting factors. The Board of Managers and the Cape Cod Commission, over the course of at least the last year, as I indicated, though, it really started in 2008 when the towns were starting to look at other options for solid waste and recycling efforts, are looking to try to find out what any beneficial reuse options there could be for the facility, because it is a transfer station that does exist on the Upper Cape and could have some benefit in some way. It's just not known what that best use of that facility might be from this point forward. So some of the information that we've heard about over the years really has to do with pay-as-you-throw. Generally speaking, pay-as-you-throw is a program whereby it's a user-based fee program. So it shifts the burden of a cost onto the actual end user. Right now, our costs are actually through the tax rate. So under the general tax base is where the costs for solid waste go. As costs increase to a point where it causes concern for a community, that's generally where you're going to find pay-as-you-throw surfacing in order to provide some kind of relief to offset those costs. The primary purpose of a pay-as-you-throw program is not what most people would commonly believe, to raise revenues by forcing people to pay at curbside. It's really to reduce the trash tonnage, and in doing so, have an indirect benefit of reducing the cost for disposal, because that's where the massive increases usually are, is what we pay at the end disposal point. So in having any kind of discussion about pay-as-you-throw, and the board's entertained this discussion over the last few years, actually, this is what we were looking at. So you have fiscal year 10 as kind of a baseline, back when we started having these discussions. Fiscal year 14 was the most recent year that we completed financially. Fiscal year 15 would have been a budgeted number, but you don't see that up there because we're transitioning in half year between Bourne and CMAS. So that fiscal year 15 is not indicative or reflective of where we're going. So that's why you see fiscal year 16 as a comparison. So the costs are going up, it's clear. You can see that the Upper Cape Rail and the Upper Cape Transfer Station share of operating costs are zeroed out because we're going to Bourne. And of course, right next to it is the comparison cost if we had continued and gone to CMAS. What we were looking at during that time was the possibility of a 62% increase in costs over the year 2010 under a CMAS option, or a 31% increase over 2014. So that's a fairly significant driving event to seriously consider pay-as-you-throw. Where we landed, however, and it really was a good contract with Bourne, is 34% over 2010 and 8% over 2014. So if you say that's a 2-year period, it's really a 4% increase for each of those years. So that would be considered normal and logical for that type of an increase.
Ray, if I could ask a question. When you speak of pay-as-you-throw, are you thinking of pay-as-you-throw at the curbside to be
Yes.
picked up, not each person responsible for taking their trash to somewhere else as pay-as-you-throw?
No,
No.
but for other communities on the Cape that have had pay-as-you-throw programs and don't have curbside,
Right.
that's the net effect for them.
And I just want to make another comment about that, because that is a huge burden for the homeowner, the individual, because they have to use their gas to take their trash and recyclables to a transfer station. Whereas here, even if you had pay-as-you-throw at curbside, the impact wouldn't be as great, because without the curbside, having to drive everything to a transfer station is hugely expensive in fuel just for a homeowner, but it also puts all kinds of cars on the road that we never had on the road before. And that is really something to think about, is not having it done on curbside.
Carbon emissions and all
Yes,
that.
everything, yeah. It's a huge expense for a homeowner. Stan?
Yeah, and I might say that I think Hyannis does this, and it's not necessarily the best relationship between neighbors, because some neighbors hoard their trash because they don't want to go once a week and build it up, and the neighbor that's disciplined, of course, resents that, and then there's a question of public health, because you may have rodents getting into it and propagating as a result of trash.
Well, I think it's
storage.
just important to have that distinction.
Yeah.
As to where the pay-as-you-throw would be, the origin, or the depository for pay-as-you-throw.
Right, so at this time, there is no recommendation from us, with respect to pay-as-you-throw, but it's certainly an option that the town may want to consider at a future time, but that is not what we're looking at here. And this is one of the reasons why. So the next major component is the waste management facility itself. The recommendation here is to maintain the service center use for it, possibly adjust fees for permits, one-time passes, and things of that nature. Right now, permits at $40, an additional permit is $40, one-time pass is $20. Those seem rather cumbersome, not necessarily user-friendly or community-friendly. I would presume that down the road, in the future, as we start moving forward with the facility, these are the types of discussions that we would have. So I would expect that over the course of this next year, in anticipation of next October, for any possible rate changes, that the rates would be reviewed for the facility. To be able to move forward with the improvements that are being recommended this evening, that would include the dumpster wall, where the C&D and trash dumpsters are currently now. That wall is failing, and you're going to see some dramatic exposure of that. Instituting a gatehouse, where the attendant would be able to be in the middle of the road, not have to cross traffic every time that he has to go out. The installation of a scale in order to be able to handle trucks and/or vehicles coming in and out of the facility. For the future, the proposal is to have a prefab garage that would include office space as well as restrooms, which would also be for the public's use, so it makes it more user-friendly. And the layout actually allows for future changes in use. Some of the considerations to think about, which a couple of you have already raised this evening: traffic, I think is always going to be an issue for us as a seasonal community. The volumes here, just like anything else that we do, increase in the summertime. And the more volumes that you have, traffic-wise, yes, it does have a carbon footprint. But even when the facility had a heavier use in the past, they had substantial waiting lines. And there were many people that were not very pleased as far as that goes. Traffic volumes are down dramatically over the last few years, predominantly as a result of a pay-as-you-throw program with the per-bag fee that was instituted out there. And the facility is much less congested as a result, and we're hoping to make it more user-friendly as a result of this layout. So I know this is very busy and very difficult to see, but this was just the kind of going into Mr. McConaty's presentation. He has a better one that you can actually read. All right. So if you don't mind, Mr. McConaty presents the layout for the facility for the board.
Good evening, Peter McConaty, Town Engineer. If you don't mind, I'm just going to move this back a little bit so folks in the audience can see the screen. Before we get started, I just wanted to restate what Mr. Jack, our director, had said, is that we can't not move forward at all until we receive approval through the Department of Environmental Protection. And what that means is an approval of this plan tonight so we can work with our consultant, Weston and Sampson, to move forward with this plan and see if we can put some of these improvements into effect. So the Director of Public Works and myself and other Department of Public Works supervisors and superintendents have been working since 2009 on this plan. This is probably the fourth rendition of this plan. I know in years past, at least twice, the director had come up and put two presentations on in the past, I think 2011, 2012. So this is the latest and the greatest. And what this plan actually shows is comprised of is earlier this year in September, I had met on site at the waste management facility with the chair of the Solid Waste Advisory Committee, Ruth Brazier, and I also met with the superintendent on site, Ernie Santos, that runs the day-to-day operations up there. We wanted to make sure that we got their concerns and we were able to address everything, put them all in the plans, and be able to move forward. And I think what you'll see is the plan that we put together, I think, comprises all those requests and concerns to the greatest extent that we could make. So just to give everyone orientated with the not everybody on a daily basis goes up to the waste management facility. This is an overall site of the facility. It's approximately 54.5 acres. This is Blacksmith Shop Road that runs up through the side. This is Bry Vogel property over in here. This is Thomas B. Landers Road. And this is the entrance, it runs up through the site, and this is the entrance road to the waste management facility. This back portion of the waste management facility is approximately about 47 acres. And that's where I think the EDIC is looking at the secondary use and the post-use of the facility. We're not talking about the back facility at all. Basically, inside this red line, all around the paved area of the facility is where we're talking about. It's about 7.5 acres, just to get everyone orientated with the site. What I'd like to do is go through, this is the existing conditions plan. I'm going to put 3 areas. I'm going to put a lower area, a lower level. I'm going to put a mid-level, and then I'm going to put an upper level. You'll see some photos of existing conditions up there. And the photos are important because when we get into the proposed portion of this presentation, you'll see the photos are going to represent what we're trying to fix up. Well, the proposed plan is going to represent what we're trying to fix up there. So this is area 1 in here. You can see the red area. This is the whole lower level. You come in through the entrance gate. This is the whole lower level before you go up above. The pick of the litter shop is here. There's a dumpster recycling pad here. The entrance gate and the trailer is up in this area. And you'll see some photos of that. When you come into the gate, this is the entrance. This is the personnel trailer coming into the gate. This was installed approximately, I would say, mid-90s, in the mid to late 90 time frame. This area right here is they actually known as Siegel Park. It's the edge of the parkway here. You can see the metal art from residents from Falmouth put this metal art area together here. this is an important area because we will be reusing this area. This is a maintenance garage, or actually a garage where they had to house equipment. And as you can see by the building, there's cracks above the doors, the entrance doors on all sides. You can see through the roofs in these areas with the right through the rafters and through the joists. And in this area, it doesn't really show too well, but in the bottom of that concrete pad, there's a big dip, there's a breakout in that area right there. This photo right here, this long photo right here, what happened is in order for them to fit it, they picked up a larger loader. And in order to put the larger loader into the building, it didn't fit, so they had to break the wall out. So what had happened is they ended up breaking the wall out, this whole section, the whole length of the wall from the floor up to the ceiling on this side, and also on the other side over here, against the wall building. And basically what that did is it ruined the integrity of the building. It's not all one, it's basically two separate pieces now. And on these over here, you see the outside of the building. What happened because of that, we get some stress cracks that are coming up the CMU blocks. That's over one of the doors at the front of the building, and this crack right up there here through the back is basically in the area, basically caused by the removal of that wall there. The building commissioner has already committed that building as to be removed. This area right here is the dumpster pad where there's some clothing textile containers, and there's a bottle dumpster container, a glass dumpster container, and also a cardboard dumpster container. You can see the concrete pad. It has all cracks all through it from heavy loading over the years, and in some of the areas there's some failings in there. There's something soft underneath that concrete pad that has to be fixed. This area right here is just outside the pick of the litter. It shows a lot of small furniture items that are exposed. We're looking at taking care of that to see if we can put that under cover. Area number 2, as we come in the site and you start to go up the hill to the mid-level. This area right here is the side slope, the access entrance road coming up to the top level. This is the access, the side slope that we'll be looking at. You'll see in the proposed plan, reusing that slope. This is the wall that the director had mentioned. Every 7 to 8 years, what happens is the water from the top of the wall gets behind the wall, and at the pressure of the water and the force of with the vehicles parked on top of the wall pushes that wall out. And every 8 years or so, they have to take that wall down and replace it. This is the top of the pad from up above, where as you can see, with all the asphalt's all failing in this area. So what happens is the water runs down, comes down behind this asphalt, gets in right behind the wall, drops behind the wall, pushes the wall out. And in 2010, Public Works did a repair on that wall, and this was during the repairs. It just shows basically the site level. There's about a 9-foot drop between the upper level and the lower level. And behind this area right in here, there's also the liner to the waste management, to the actual landfill portion of it. So when we go to rebuild this wall, we got to be careful. They've found it in the past when they've done it, and they stay plenty far away from it. But the liner is there, and we do know that. I think this is the second or third time in 2010 when they repaired the wall, and it's ready to be repaired again. The upper tier, this is the upper level when you start to go up towards the upper level where you come in to drop off your trash, your MSW. This area basically is on one side of the site is when they come in and do all the pickups. You've got the refrigerator drop off, the computer drop off, the tire drop off, the smash pad, and that is for large TVs or what have you. On the other side of that is a gypsum board container, and the other side of the parking lot is the mattress container, container for pickup. This area over here is still on the top level, is in the back of the lot next to the metal pile. What this was used for in the past, or what it was meant to be used for, it's an elevated platform about 10 feet high, and it's made to put another container in the bottom down here, so the front end loader can pick up, drive right up the top of that ramp, and dump right into the loader. That's what it was used for in the past, so we're looking at reusing that ramp and that pad. And this is an area looking at the opposite side of the site, straight down the site. And this area is also important because we'll be looking at moving what I just showed you, all those pickups, the containers, the smash pads, the refrigerator pickup, the propane pickup, swapping from that side of the parking lot to this side of the parking lot. And as you can see, this is the back lot up there. That's the old Acme plant that's under construction at this time. So this is the proposed plan. If you don't mind, I'm going to step away from the podium here for a sec. So basically, when you come in the site, You'll come in the site down through here. The trailer that I showed you at the very beginning, that trailer eventually will be removed. We'll be removing the trailer. You'll come further through the site, and this area from where this roadway opening is up through that Siegel Park will turn into 3 lanes. There'll be an entrance, there'll be an exit, and then this outside lane here will be the new scale area for entrance and exit. Trucks will come in and out. We're looking at putting a gatehouse in the center of the lane, and we're looking at removing that existing building that I showed you was structurally condemned there by the building commissioner, and installing a new building, a larger building at this side here that also have office area and will have the equipment area for their two equipment bays for their equipment. As you come down through, this pad that I showed you that was falling apart with the soft areas in it, this pad will be fully removed and reconstructed. The pick of the litter shop here, next to the pick of the litter shop, will be putting a lean-to, basically shed roof to be able to place those small furniture items underneath there to keep dry, where people can either swap the furniture out, or until the time, if it's not used, they can bring it up to the smash pad. We'll be relocating some of the parking spaces along the side of that, so we'll be pushing the parking spaces a little bit further down the parking lot. I do have some, in future, in next couple of slides, you'll see I do have a blow-up of that building and a blow-up of the tender's shack. As you start to come up the hill here, we're looking at that area, that side slope I showed you. That will be the new Siegel Park. We'll relocate all the new metal art. So when you're actually in the site and you're coming up the hill, it'll be on the side of the hill on that area. There'll be signage there to show the signage. Once you come up and you come up to the top of the hill, there'll actually be bays. All these green lines up here, they're all paint marks. They'll actually be bays that you'll be able to back in, drive in, or back in to get rid of your MSW. There'll be 4 MSW containers and 2 C&D containers. So you'll be able to pull in. There'll be concrete pads to stop the water from getting behind the wall. They'll replace the wall. There'll be a concrete pad at the bottom of the wall to hold these containers. You'll come around the site. You can, as you follow this green line, there'll be pavement markings up here. This will take you down to the metal facility where the metals are contained. We're looking at putting a chain link fence around the metal area. And as you come around the side of here, we'll be relocating all the smash pad, the tires, the refrigerators, and what have you on this side. One of the comments that was brought up by the superintendent on site is that if you put the smash pad up over here, they don't want to be driving across the parking lot with broken drywall and wood and nails and what have you. People get flat tires. So what we're going to do is we're going to reuse this elevated ramp area here so that he'll be able to do the smash pad, come right up, dump into the container, and it's maybe about 50 feet apart on each way. When the trucks come in to pick up the metal, they'll come up through the site. This will be a gated area, a slide gate. They'll come through the slide gate, drop off the material, pick up the metal, and they'll be able to drive right back through and come around the back of the site and proceed to go out again. This is actually a plan of the building that I had mentioned, the office area and also the garage bays. Basically what they have up there and what they've had in the past up there is they've had a front end loader for the smash pad and to knock down the MSW trailers when they get full, and also a pickup truck, a site pickup truck trailer. So with that building that'll go away, we're going to replace that building with a larger building. We'll be able to put in a front end loader in one bay, a pickup truck in another bay, and this will be the actual office area where the employee, the personnel will have their, there'll be a full accessible bathroom in the front. There'll be a full, basically we call it an office, but it's actually a table in there for a kitchen area. And in the back, there'll be a back room that'll be the utility room, and there'll also be some locker rooms in there, some lockers in there, and a changing area for the people, for the workers up there. If you come through this door here, you'll be into the bay, and we show the lighting up there. There'll be high bay lighting, will be high roof, will be a high building. 2 12-foot doors. When you come out of the facility, you'll be able to walk out into this concrete pad, walk straight to the end of the building. There'll be a 5-foot, basically a 5-foot walk that'll get you past the building. Come straight across and you'll be able to go into this tender's house. The tender's house is basically going to be 4 walls, but it's basically going to be about 60%, 65% glass. There's going to be 2 glass doors, 1 on each side. There's going to be a glass window in the front. There's going to be a glass window in the back. So most of it's going to be a glass building. And then as you come through these lanes, you come through the tender's house, through this lane, this will be the scale lane, where trucks and vehicles will come in, they'll get weighed, they'll go to the site, they'll drop off or pick up, they'll come back out, and they'll get weighed and get their tier again. This is a blow-up of the gatehouse that we're looking at. It is it's 6 foot wide, 10 foot long. The concrete pad is 8 foot wide in one direction and 16 feet long in the other direction. There'll be the U-shaped bollards as you see in gas stations that if there's any crash, vehicles coming through. We are looking at putting a full permanent scale on site. These are two companies that do sell these scales, Fairbanks and Trident, two companies that are out there, so we are looking at these sites, at these companies to put that site. If you were standing at the pick of the litter, this is what you'd see. It's basically, you'd see the building. If you anyone that's been to Jack and the Beanstalk up the top of Gifford Street in front of the high school, that's the type of building we're talking about. It's a metal roof, metal building, and it's basically that type of layout. You'll have the two layout doors, two 12-foot wide by 14-foot high doors, the main entrance door to the building, and this will be the door. This will be the window and where the bathroom is. 5-foot walk. You'll have an 11-foot lane. You'll have a 10-foot area here where the gatehouse will be, another 11-foot lane, and then you'll have the scale. We say the scale optional lane, but that's going to be the scale lane, and that's the other 12-foot lane. And this area right here will be digging up. This will be the existing Siegel Park area that will be removed and will be replaced with asphalt.
Can you explain to me why the scale lane and the entry lane couldn't be the same one? Is it going to be so busy you need to have two, or is it you don't want to have cars that aren't being weighed driving the scale lane? But I think to have the scale lane still across that entering lane, you're going to have someone getting either out of their truck or the guard getting over to the truck that's been weighed. But I couldn't understand why you couldn't have that just be one lane. If you're in a car, you don't bother getting weighed, you just drive and stop.
We could do that. Actually, they'll be on a tier scale when they get on there. It'll be electronics. It'll go right into the gatehouse for the weights. But this is actually going to be a two-way lane. People coming in to scale, and then people coming out.
Okay.
So they'll be going through the line, and then on the way out, they'll be going through the lane. So to make it easier. So
that's the reason for the way out. Okay.
Correct.
Gotcha.
So just in a recap, and we'll leave this slide up. Basically, what we're looking at doing, if we can get approval on this plan, is the layout features will be a new gatehouse. We'll have an entrance scale, a new office garage building, facility cameras. One thing I didn't mention, there's an existing utility pole here at the edge of this pad. Up at the top of where this platform is right here, it's about 10 feet high. We'll be putting another utility pole in. And an area right down here, right next to these dumpster pads, we put another utility pole area. They were strategically located because there's a liner under this facility that's 2 feet down, so you have to be careful where you're drilling to put poles in. So they're outside the areas to where the liner would be. So those cameras would allow the attendants down and the personnel down in the gatehouse and in the building to be able to see what's going on up at the metal pile and see what's going on in the dumpster areas. There'll be a new covered shed at the pick of the litter. We'll replace the recycle and the textile concrete pad. We'll be relocating Siegel Park, replace the container walls and the pads, and we'll be doing a relocation of the upper level drop-off area. So basically, in a nutshell, that's what we'll be doing. There's some other features in there that'll be minor features that we'll be working in there, but as far as DEP goes with the permit, they wouldn't want to know the big items that we're going to be doing. So that's basically the facility.
What is the process for fueling the equipment that is on site?
Usually the equipment will, if it's to fuel the loader, it would come down to the Public Works facility.
So it has to drive all the way down there?
Yeah, and it would load.
How often?
I don't
I'm
know
just curious.
It might be the highway superintendent would be able to answer that,
It
but
does just, to the point, there wouldn't be any sense in putting a fuel station on site?
that's a whole new area DEP putting underground fuel storage and all. That's a whole new area of them. So, actually, back in 2011, there was an underground oil tank that was at that old building that will be taken down, and we had to hire site professionals to come in and take it out and make sure it was clean in the fire department. So it's a bigger facility. The amount of diesel use that the machine uses on a daily basis. Maybe once a week.
Okay,
Well, let me just say, it's not, it wouldn't be on a daily basis.
thank you.
Sam? And then Becky.
Peter, I didn't hear you mention, will there still be an opportunity for people to dispose of their old motor oil, antifreeze, fluorescent lamps, mercury thermostats, lithium batteries?
That's a good question. Yes, when you, currently, when you come into the building, these containers up in this area, that's where the oil drop-off area is. There's the long, the bulbs, we can drop off the bulbs, the batteries. That's up in this area. All that stuff will also get pushed down to this area closer to this building here, so it will be monitored. Those sheds will be pulled down further.
Thank you.
Will they still have the scales over at Bourne, or is all of that closing down?
At the Bourne landfill?
Yes.
No, they would still have the scales to be.
Okay. Then, if that happens, the Bourne and Falmouth both have scales. Do you think our rates will be competitive with Bourne, or that's too far ahead to know that? I just want to know what competition, or is Falmouth going to be equal to the price that Bourne charges? Because Falmouth charges a lot more right now whenever you're taking anything out there than Bourne does. And so when the truck gets on the scale, it's really so much cheaper than Falmouth.
Right. To answer that question, I'd like to defer that question. That might be another topic for another, I think,
Okay, that's
some
fine.
more conversations. Because I think there's a lot, it's not just a simple question. I think there's a lot behind that question.
Okay.
As far as the rates between Bourne and Falmouth.
Peter, aside from improved traffic flow, better sighting of the different amenities at the treatment facility, what else does this accomplish for the department in terms of its solid waste objectives?
With our department?
Yeah.
Well, what this will do is it'll put us in, right now, we're working on a quasi-permit with DEP. This will put us in full compliance with the DEP. Adjustments were made in early years, in the 90s up there, and early 2000s up there, that were not fully approved through the DEP. And we're working as a permitted facility, but we want to get the site permitted so we can start working on what improvements we'd like to make up there.
And we already have substantial funds earmarked for this, is that correct?
There is, yeah, and there's also, I mean, another thing that if you keep in mind, Technology Park. I mean, this is a 2005 aerial of Technology Park, and this it butts right up to the waste management facility, and it shows it as being all woods, but it's starting to expand now. There's buildings going up in some of those areas up there, so we're trying to push to the other. That's one of the reasons why we're relocating to the other side of the parking lot, with all our smash pad and concrete pads onto this side, because we're trying to get away from this side of the parking lot. There's a long slope, and then you have the properties here. There is one thing to do, though, to mention, though, is that there is a 100-foot wildlife easement in that area, so it's basically a no-build zone in that area on their property, just outside the waste management facility. But basically what this will do is this will basically bring us to where we want to be in the future as far as having a place to store the equipment, having a better drop-off. I heard the complaints, and we've been receiving complaints about the dumpster pad down below, the failing dumpster pad, trying to get the loaders off it and trying to pick up those rollers, the concrete compactor container up there. We have, as I shown and I had mentioned, we have a constant problem with the wall in that area. We have to take care of that wall. We've had some safety issues up there, and right now, that wall, probably next spring is going to have to be, if we do the new wall or don't do the new wall, that's going to have to be taken down and rebuilt again, because the water pressure behind it's already knocking it out. So
Right. Peter, is C&D currently accepted there now?
it is.
It is, and
Yeah.
this will continue?
Yeah, so what it is these last two containers on this side are reserved for the C&D.
Okay.
Yeah.
So-
What is the capacity right now, and how does that compare, like the maximum capacity versus how much it's currently used?
I do not have the answers to how much is currently used. I think we have, Kathy Marks might have some of those answers here, what we have for numbers at this point. I do know that the facility is a 50-ton per day facility is what we could use it for. So that's actually permitted through the DEP is 50 tons per day.
you want to, I don't know, Greg, you want to do the, is it, I don't know if its current use is trash or all recycling?
Well, you figure that trash last year was, excuse me, 237 tons. So that's not even a ton a day on trash, and there was only 2,600 tons, I think, total for recycling, and at the facility there were less than 300 tons on recyclables. So that's not to say all materials, meaning metals included and things like that, but we are way, way below what the actual utilization of the facility theoretically could be.
And
Go ahead.
And along those lines, do we have an estimated cost of this project as it stands? Or is it too early?
Well, it's a little bit difficult because we are going to try to have forced labor, so to speak, where we're going to try to take advantage of the Sheriff's Department, as well as we have a lot of skilled tradesmen within our organization that are capable of doing a lot of the work. So that's going to be the goal, is to try to get it done as cheaply as possible. If you recall earlier, when I mentioned the Weston and Sampson report, the actual cost of all of these improvements was in the $630,000 range. $200,000 is going to buy us a lot of project out there and a lot of goodwill. Okay, so we may not be able to get it all squeezed within there, but the order of priority would be that major retaining wall where the C&D and the trash are. That's a very big safety issue for us, so that's the #1 priority. Second would be for the gatehouse, would actually occur about the same time. Once again, that too is a safety issue. Then the third component would be the scale for efficiency and accountability. And then lastly would be the building. And some of the other things that were mentioned are rather small, you know, as far as project scope goes, so they can be done just about any time and they're very low cost.
Thank you.
Ray, our recycling rate is really poor when you think it's 21 or 22%. And I noticed when other communities around us, Sandwich and I can't remember the other one, went to pay-as-you-throw, the recycling rates went up tremendously to like 46, 48%, because people obviously, it was going to cost less for them to recycle than to buy the 250 bag and put everything in the trash bag. And that's not something we really want to do. We don't want to give up our curbside, either trash pickup or recycling. But how do we get people to recycle more than currently? Do you have any thoughts about that? Certainly, this plan isn't going to help recycling at all. I mean, it's great, but in terms of recycling, it's, I mean, it's not an incentive to recycle.
Right, and the facility itself...
It's not meant to be, and I understand that, yeah.
Right, the facility itself, when people bring recyclables up there, namely the cardboard, the paper, and the bottles, they're not doing us any favor. Up there, we have to pay to move it.
Right.
All right? Curbside, it's already paid for, just put it out. We're paying one-stop shop, it's a monthly fee that we pay, regardless of how much is out there on the street. As far as overall, though, I think that one thing that would really benefit us in the future, and would definitely be necessary if we were even consider pay-as-you-throw, is going to be literally massive public education, public awareness efforts. I think that recycling took off back in the 80s, and then it kind of went into a lull, you know, and once in a while it gets revisited, but I don't know that it's on everybody's mind. When you think about our program, weekly trash collection, bi-weekly recyclables, all right? So you can get rid of it faster if you put it in the trash type thing, but I think it has to be more of a community awareness and a community understanding of the real benefit and the real need of curbside recycling. But 21% for what we have and where we are today in 2014, we should be much higher than that.
With the fact that we're now single stream recycling, getting a large bin for the recyclables is now acceptable and encouraged, or is that not working for our trucks yet?
No, that's true. Before, everything had to be separated at curbside, so your papers had to be separate, your cardboard was separate, your cans and bottles were separate, but right now you can commingle those materials on our current contract.
And if they do put that in one of those large green bins that they bring up to the street, that's not a problem for our contractor to handle that?
No.
Okay.
No. As a matter of fact, our current solid waste contractor just brought on, I want to say 3, I know definitely 2, but I want to say 3 front loader type of residential trucks where they have a lowboy type of bin that you'll see on the front end of the truck in order for them to handle some of the larger ones that they encounter that are a bit heavier.
Would you explain that again, when Doug was talking about single stream? And then what did you say after that, that it could all go into one?
Correct.
Can you say a little bit more about that?
If you recall when we had the little blue bins, and you put those little blue bins out, one blue bin would have paper, one would have cardboard, and another would have cans of bottles. You could put that all in a trash can. We have recycling stickers that you can put on a regular trash can now that just says, it's a green sticker that says recycle, and the contractor takes that as recycling, and you can put all of that together in that container.
Another day. Any other questions? Anybody in the audience want to make any comments? Mr. Finneran?
Mark Finneran, Precinct 6. As you know, a few years ago, I presented, well, actually more than one article on the things that went on in the waste management facility. Missing metal, mismanagement. Town meeting passed a solid waste manager. It's been almost 2 years, and we see nothing of a solid waste manager. Can you update me on the likelihood of that ever happening, and if so, and if not, what does town meeting mean? Well, you seem to be ignoring town meeting. I mean, it's been 2 years. When's a solid waste manager going to be hired?
Do you want to respond? I didn't hear what he said.
About the solid waste manager, I believe that instead of, we've been doing our best to hire one, and alternatively, we hired a consultant that was able to give us this report on that.
Okay.
We did pay attention to town meeting, as we always do. The vote was to hire a solid waste manager. We are not going to hire someone that's unqualified, that is not going to meet the needs of the town, and we did not find someone who met the needs, and so we ended up going with a consultant route instead.
In 2 years, I couldn't find anyone. All right, Wayne Millville, the solid waste man that we hired from GovTemps. He was here for a 6-month contract, I believe, and it was to be extended 6 months, and or possibly to extended 6 months. It never was. We asked at the Solid Waste Advisory Committee for a copy of his report, and we were told that we couldn't have it. And now it's evidently you people have read the report. Why couldn't we?
Is that this?
Yes, Madam Chairman, perhaps I could address that. The intent of the report was to make it available to the Board of Selectmen initially as a courtesy to the board. And now that that has occurred, as to the presentation this evening with the additional comments from Public Works Director Ray Jack, that's become a public document and will be available for all.
Well, it always was a public document because it was paid for with public money. And we are an advisory committee, and we weren't involved in it at all. Wouldn't you think it would have been proper for us to get that report first before this ever happened?
Well, I think I already answered that question about what the intent was. It was to bring it to the Board of Selectmen.
We're an advisory committee. Why have us? Okay. There isn't enough money there to do a third of what's proposed on this thing if the price is $600,000. We got about $184,000 as I recall. That garage at the dump that holds the loader, the roof's leaked for years. That building need not be torn down. It could be salvaged and save us a hell of a lot of money. The money we save there, we could buy a truck that they don't even have. They haven't had a truck at the dump for 2 years. I think that should be considered It's, all you have to do where the blocks are cracked is you just pour concrete down through the cells, and that will more than shore it up. The walls themselves aren't moving at all, other than where they knock the back out of the building. Then you could build a smaller, separate, cheaper building, or even buy a trailer for offices. I mean, we have to look at economy here. We don't have this kind of money. This is a pipe dream. We're never gonna get 600 grand. Also, we need to expand the recycling at the dump. And we need to stop not only giving it away, but paying to have it taken away. If Mr. Kabosa can make money off recycling, we can as well. I think that should be looked at. And of course, if we had a solid waste manager, that would be looked at, and it would probably already be happening. And as far as fueling up the trucks, the loader, they actually have tanks that they put in the back of pickup trucks. They used to have one when the dump had a truck, but they took the truck away and took the fuel away. So now he has to drive down, fill up at the DPW, drive back. It basically takes almost a quarter of a tank just to do that in about an hour and a half. It's very wasteful. As I say, the place needs management. Thanks.
So, Jenny, yes.
Madam Chair, can
Yes,
I make one
sure.
further clarifying comment? I wouldn't want the public to get the wrong impression. Mr. Melville, while he was here, met on a regular basis with the Solid Waste Committee, so in the development of the plan, which he was instrumental in, which the board has seen received tonight, there was regular interaction with the Solid Waste Committee, and I am confident that their thoughts and suggestions and ongoing interaction are a fundamental part of that's already included in this report. So certainly they have been regularly involved, and I would not want to leave the impression that that was not the case.
We were denied the
report.
report.
Mr. Finneran,
Several times.
Jenny has the floor, if you don't
I'm
mind.
going to comment back on
No,
what you
not
said.
now you're not, Mr. Finneran. Wait until,
Right here then, because
Jenny, go ahead.
that's completely incorrect.
Virginia Gregg, Precinct 1, and a member of the Solid Waste Advisory Committee for 25 years. Mr. Finneran has been on the committee for 2 months, and nothing he said, he's not speaking for the committee. He is speaking for
Mr.
himself.
Finneran, I'm going to ask you, please. She has the floor.
And I also would like to say that when Mr. Melville, the consultant, was here, he came to every one of our meetings. He shared extra time with us outside of the committee, and I think the work he did was amazing and very good, and I'm very grateful for having had him here. Thank you.
Thank you.
I need a recess.
Hmm?
I need a recess right now.
Okay.
I don't know how she can say that the work was good. We never saw the report.
We're going to
Again,
take a
I state,
3-minute
we didn't
recess.
see the report, and we should have.
call this meeting back into session, and we have two more speakers who want to make a brief comment. Ruth Brazier, Chairman of the Solid Waste Advisory Committee.
I'm Ruth Brazier, Chairman of the Solid Waste Advisory Committee, Precinct 5. I'd just like to say that the committee has worked long and hard in cooperation with the DPW on this plan. And Mr. Melville used a lot of the information that we were able to furnish him. He used our statistics, our figures that we've been compiling over the last 25 years. We're very pleased that I think those of us who've been working on this, I think all our suggestions were listened to, and most of them incorporated in this plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And yes, Mr. Cavosa. By the way, congratulations on your
Thank you very much.
Successful votes at town meeting.
Thank
By
you.
a hair.
By a
but
very
hey.
hair. It was Mrs. Moffett, I think, at the last second. Real quick, I think the plan's wonderful. I know this has been a long-term study. There was some studies done by Weston and Sampson a long time ago. The wall at the transfer station is dangerous. When you get close to the wall, it tilts down. So if you're unsteady with what you have, you get to the wall, and then you have a 1-inch trip hazard, and you end up in the dumpster. So it is very dangerous at the wall. We do need to do some repairs here. But the couple of numbers that I'd like you to think about, and I might have them backwards, but there was about 500 tons of material we moved, 300 tons of trash, 200 tons of recycling. We're going to spend $600,000 to move that material. That's a lot of money. To me, I love the facility. I know I'll be tarred and feathered, but for that amount of waste, we should be looking at something else. I mean, either enhancing our curbside collection, doing some local dumpsters similar to what we did in Woods Hole or with the Village Association. But to spend $600,000, and then some of it I worries me a little bit. You know, they talk about in the building, there's some settling. Once we start digging there, I'm in the excavation business. Nobody knows what's under there. And, you know, I was laughing when the engineer said it's soft. It's a landfill. Everything there is soft. And when you get into the site work there, I wouldn't hesitate to say that it's going to be more than what we expected. So, you know, I'm optimistically, I'd like to see something happen there. I'm not sure spending $600,000 is a great idea. It does need some improvement, but for 500 tons, it's not a lot of waste. The last thing I'll leave you with is, you know, when the town first had a disposal contract with CMAS, when it negotiated that contract with CMAS, it included all the commercial waste. So your price was also good for all the businesses in Falmouth. This go-round, when the contract was up, there was no inclusion of the commercial waste. So the town of Bourne has no more space. They've sold it to CMAS, and they've sold it to you. We're closing the transfer station out at Otis. We've just forced all that commercial waste to go over the bridge. I'm not sure if the scale here is intended to take commercial waste. If that's the case, that's fantastic. I don't know that the DEP would permit that because you don't have a building, but we need to, that's something that we really need to think about and talk about.
Question for Mr.
Yes.
I was curious what your view would be of the director's mention of a public-private partnership.
This facility, you know, this facility is a great public use facility, publicly run. You know, the DPW does a great job here. It's not a lot of material. I'm not sure how many members are there, how many staff members, but for two guys maybe, to handle 500 tons a year, that's, you know, a lot of transfer stations handle 500 to 1,000 tons a day. You know, we're handling 500 tons a year. That's not a lot of, you know, and now, there are some other things I think Ray, you know, when he says that tonnage number that's misleading, where they're handling TVs, they're handling mattresses, they're handling a lot of stuff that probably doesn't go out by weight. And those things are a necessity for the community. They're very important to have. It seems like we might duplicate some of those with Bourne, but this facility in a small scale is a great thing to have. I'd like to see a public-private partnership at the other facility and maybe move this to that facility, because you could include a lot of these services at that facility. You already have a scale, you already have an in and an out, you already have a building, the equipment's there, and you wouldn't spend $600,000. So I think maybe I am going to work with the Solid Waste Advisory Committee. I've asked to meet with them. I've sent a letter to the Selectman's office to ask to meet with the Selectman. I love the plan. I think it's a great idea. There are some improvements that need, but maybe just a little bit more work with Weston and Sampson. Thank you.
Just to clarify
wait a minute.
with Mr. Jack, on the $600,000 figure was thrown around, we also have in the report that really, it looks like it would be much more around 280, where we already have some money towards that. Is that correct?
Correct. The $630,000 was the estimate Weston and Sampson came up with in their report, if it were all contracted.
Right.
So that's why we are not looking to do that. So all of those costs come down dramatically.
And I think the figures you were giving us before is around 285, and we do have a balance of 185 towards that.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, one more comment, and that's it, yes. Maury, did you want to?
Good evening, Matthew Hanley. I actually live on Thomas Landers Road. I'm very familiar with the landfill because of my vicinity, living on Thomas Landers Road. To tell you the truth, I live on Thomas Landers Road. I don't have curbside, because to live on Thomas Landers Road and leave your trash cans on the road, once they're emptied, are fair game for landscapers or anyone else that needs trash cans for moving material. So since I was a child, when I first got my license, I've been taking the trash to the dump. With the new fees and everything, the way the dump is being run now, to tell you the truth, I live in Falmouth and I go to the Bourne dump. I take all the trash, household trash from my residence and all my trash from my business that I have in Falmouth to the Bourne dump for $7. During the 4th of July weekend, I went to go to the Falmouth dump with 2 bags of trash. The gate attendant told me $27 to dispose of 2 bags of trash. The main reason you're seeing such a decreased traffic at this facility is because of the fees. And we should be looking at this facility at a cost-effective, saying, where can we make money? Trash is big business. People are buying shares in trash companies throughout the world. And if this dump is not making money, it's because we're not running it properly, and we're not saying, where can we sell the recyclables? If we weren't charging $27 at the gate, people would be bringing recyclables, which they're worth money, to the town dump, basically giving the town money. Scrap metal is big money. I save every piece of metal in my shop for my business and put it in buckets and take it all the way up to Zion's and come home with $200 in my pocket, $300 in my pocket for a couple 5-gallon buckets. So if we're not making money with the scrap metal, that's a gross oversight on the town's part. So there are ways to make money with this facility, but to spend $600,000 with the design, which is basically just a beautification of our original layout. We changed the crash pad and the containers that are up on the upper platform to one side. We're rebuilding a wall. We're doing, adding a scale. The scale should have been there 10 years ago, because we weren't weighing the trash that we're paying to be hauled off. And that's inefficient. If you're paying someone by the pound to remove trash, don't you want to know how many pounds that you're paying to have removed? So I have serious concerns about spending $600,000 until we can make this facility make money.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hanley. One more comment, Maury.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for giving me the opportunity to speak. Maury Harlow Hawks, Precinct 6. The reason I'm here tonight is actually to follow up on town meeting. Timing is everything. This report I tried to get a week before town meeting to know how we would vote and how our constituents would vote on Article 9 and 10, which was rezoning for a transfer station on 151. And I was never given this report, and I understand as of today, Mr. Jack's office told me that it had to come to you first before we could see it. It seems rather inappropriate timing that this should have been brought forward to your board, to the town meeting members, and to the planning board. They were clueless on this. And I think it was a very disservice to the taxpayers and to us as town meeting members that we could not make a good decision on this without having all this information as we're having tonight, which we still have to wait to go get. Now we can get it. And I would just recommend that in the future, when something as large as this is something that's on a town meeting article or ties together with a town meeting article, that you either put some spark underneath somebody's butt and get them to get it to us and get it to you and get it to planning. Brian Curry, this would have made a big difference for people. We lost by 1 vote and 1/6 of a vote for those 2 articles, and this could have been a very big linchpin for how the town would have proceeded. And I just wanted that, and I really want to apologize to the constituents because this information was not given to us, and we were not allowed to speak. We were shut down on Article 10, and we weren't allowed, with our hands up, with the moderator, to speak on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now, what is your pleasure? We are here tonight we have been asked by the town manager and Ray Jack to consider a vote to support this project moving forward. Is anyone ready to?
I'm ready to make a motion to
that?
support it with the recommendation of the Solid Waste Advisory Committee also supporting it.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ray, for your presentation. Now we'll move on to the next area of a public hearing. Wastewater. Yes, that's right.
And this is official.
That's exactly where we're going next. This is a public hearing on the use of town property regarding town-owned parcels for municipal purposes, and they are 5 wastewater project sites. And a presentation, please, by Mr. Gregg.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Jeff Gregg. I am the project manager with GHD, working with the town of Falmouth on a Little Pond Service Area project. Tonight, what we're doing is just doing a very brief presentation on the 5 sites that went out as part of the hearing, just to talk about what their proposed municipal use is going to be. Next slide, please. So, as part of the notice that went out, there were 5 sites that were identified, the first of which being the treated water recharge sites up at the top of the town, just north of the existing treatment facility, and then 3 lift station sites. We only need 2 for the project. The third was an alternative site that was identified so that we had some flexibility on Spring Bars Road in case one of the sites fell through. So tonight we're really just going to be focusing on the one at Alphonse Street, which is at the school, and then one on Spring Bars that's just south of the mall. That's number 4. And then the last location is where the town already has an existing odor control unit on the service road. Part of the project is, or part of an associated project is to replace that odor control unit with a new biofilter, and it's just in the right of way, so we're not really spending much time tonight on that. The focus will be on the 3 recharge site and the 2 lift station sites. Next slide, please. So this is the proposed location of the 2 recharge beds. They're the sand infiltration beds. They're similar to the same municipal use that you're having right now at the wastewater treatment facility. So you have your existing facility and beds. They'll be connected by a pipeline that'll come up from the existing wastewater treatment property. Part of this area is actually part of the Steamship Authority property that was purchased for this project. Or I should say acquired, not purchased, my correction. And site access would be off of Research Road. This will be for essentially the 2 sand beds. There's some monitoring wells that go along with the monitoring program that are associated with it. The town has met with one of the neighbors previously about the site initially. We have to set up another meeting with them as well to talk about landscaping and things like that now that we have further developed plans. But essentially, that's the purpose of this site. The next slide. The first lift station site, these are essentially to be operated similar to the existing lift stations that you already have in the town of Falmouth. You already have several. We're adding 2 more as part of the Little Pond Service Area project. So the first one I want to talk about is up off of Alphonse Street. It's actually part of the T-Ticket School property. It's over on the northwest side. Access would be off Alphonse. Essentially, the existing location is shown here. It's just sort of a wooded area right now. In the future, what it would have is it would have a small building for the electrical, some structures for the wet well and piping and things of that nature. And again, it's just a wastewater treatment, a wastewater collection, and then that would pump from there to the existing collection system. The next site is off of Spring Bars Road. It's just south of the mall. I apologize if it's a little washed out. This is Walmart right here. This is the south entrance off Spring Bars, so it's just to the east of that. It's essentially a flat grassy area with a couple trees. And again, it will have a new structure, some underground structures for the wet well and supporting piping and things of that nature with access off of Spring Bars Road. And the last slide is just an example of what the structures might look like that we're proposing. So it's cedar shingles, asphalt shingle roof, and so it's a pretty small, simple structure. This is an example of what it might look like. And with that, I will.
Okay. I just wanted to remind the public and the board that these are municipal sites, and any time that municipal sites are being proposed to be used for public purposes, it requires a public hearing, and that's what this is tonight. And this is an opportunity for those who are here to comment on these uses. This hearing will continue for 35 days, and anyone who wants to make any comments in writing may do so during that 35-day period. When the 35 days is completed, then it will come back to the board, and then the board will vote on it as a final option at the end of the 35-day comment period, just so everyone knows what this is about tonight. Okay, thank you very much. First, I'll ask for questions from the board before Mr. Gregg leaves. Anybody have any questions for him? Is yet, Sam?
One minor one. The site on the service road for the
yes.
odor management, is that going to be the same facility footprint?
It's going to, not that you could really tell, but it's going to essentially be a slightly larger area, but it's in the same general vicinity. So what it's going to be is it's a biofilter. So it's just a below-grade structure. It may have a small structure to support a blower for that unit, but it's a fairly small footprint in that off the edge in the road right of way.
You know, when I saw the picture of the lift station, of what it could look like, it reminded me of where are there other places in town where we have a lift station like that, and I think it's very similar to the one that's in North Falmouth, near the North Falmouth School. That's the lift station for for the sewer area in the North Falmouth Silver Beach area?
Oh, yes.
And it's sort of it's not really similar to the one down here downtown, because that's kind of
Those are,
brick.
yeah, they're brick.
And
You
the
have-
one on Palmer Avenue is much larger and brick also.
Yeah, so
But
you-
it's similar to the one, wouldn't you say, in North Falmouth?
Correct, except for it's not on stilts, for lack of a better term.
Right.
So it would look pretty much like what you saw there, it'd just be on a foundation and then the cedar structure,
Right.
cedar shingles.
Any other questions from the board? No? Okay, the public, yes, sir, you had a question. If not, would you come to the microphone, please, and then identify yourself? Are you
Want me to
finished?
stay here? Oh, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
all set.
Yeah, okay.
I'll stand right here.
Okay. And just identify yourself for the record,
Yeah,
please.
Richard Stone, I'm on Hickory Lane. I'm back on the new T-Ticket Park.
Okay.
And all that area, of course, is wetland area. And there's a lot of water around it, particularly behind the school.
Oh,
And
yes.
even there, as you go behind Walmart, and that whole area there, that's all. I mean, at one time, my neighbors tell me, they used to have herring come up that far. So my concern here, my question here really is, what kind of activities take place in these lift stations? And how vulnerable are they to any kind of mishap that would contaminate that water area that we're now trying to reclaim and make better? Because I have no idea, what a lift station actually mechanically does and what vulnerabilities are there.
So this is the mall site. This site will have a wet well with 2 submersible pumps. I believe it's 2 for both of these in it. So the way the lift station works is your collection system is going to collect wastewater from the Little Pond service area to each of those stations. Not all of it's going to go to these stations. Some of it's actually going to tie into the existing collection system. And then these structures are essentially set to at grade with a slight reveal. It's a concrete structure above flood elevation, so that we want to be, for the purpose of if there were a flood or anything like that. That's how these would be designed. And then the electrical equipment, again, would be in this building, set above flood elevation. So all the facilities are set above flood elevation. The wetlands, I believe on this site, the wetland buffers curve on this side, and then there's a small isolated wetland over here, and then I believe there's another wetland south of Spring Bars as well. So we've gone through the NOI process with the town and Conscom to go through all of that. But essentially, this is just to collect the wastewater, and because they're submersible pumps, they're designed for, operation in a wet environment. So it's not as if they'd be dry pumps sitting in a station. They're actually designed to be submersed. And like I said, the station's set above flood elevation, so the intent is not to be getting in water or anything else from there. In terms of if there was a problem at the station, it's got an emergency generator, so if power's out, it will continue to pump, and there's alarm systems, and it's tied to the town's SCADA communication system, so they would get alarms so that they would know if there's an issue at the station, in which case they would have to go out and respond and either repair the station or call in something in order to move the wastewater as they needed to. So that's how they kind of deal with it. Similar to any other station that you have at Falmouth Beach or Inner Harbor or Jones Palmer or any of those other stations that you have. It's the same concept, built with the same kinds of protections. I don't know if that answered your question.
Well, I mean...
Excuse me, you have to go to the microphone.
I mean, it does in the sense that this is how it's supposed to work. I think my basic question was, what is the consideration if it doesn't work as it's supposed to? A pipe rupture, is this far enough from the road? I know the Alphonse Street one is, but people walk through there all the time. And that's a regular trail of people who sometimes do damage to the property around there and so on. And this is an isolated place. So I'm kind of looking at the what-ifs after it's built, after it's operating, to know, have they been considered and what kinds of safeguards are in place so the damage to the building, break-in by somebody who wants a sneaky place for smoking or drinking or whatever else, what if those things happen? What are the contingencies in place? Because we're right in that wetland path, and it doesn't take much of a spill to really make a mess of that wetland path, which, as I say, we are all trying to preserve and make better.
Okay, Mr. Stone, Mr. Gregg will respond, and then I'm going to suggest that outside the meeting, perhaps you can have conversations with Mr. Patamas if you're not really satisfied with the answers, okay?
So I
Go
think
ahead.
that the main general response would be for the Alphonse Street site, we actually are going to have a fence around that facility as well. So that will have a fence around it because of the location of where it is, and it's on the back side of that property, and it is near a walking path, and it's a bit more isolated, whereas the Spring Bars one is pretty much right out there in the open like a lot of the other stations that you have. It'll have lighting and things like that, but that's, I think, the response to that.
Okay. Yes, sir.
My name is Donald Sterner. I actually live on Randolph Street, the very first parcel right next to that new lift station that's being proposed. So I actually have three concerns. Noise, how much noise is this going to produce? Odor, how much odor is this going to produce? And how will this possibly impact my property values? Will my property values possibly go down as a result of having a wastewater lift station in my neighborhood?
Well, I can talk to the first 2 points. So, you asked, each one of the lift stations is going to be designed with odor control. So that's to deal with that, similar to the other lift stations in town. And in terms of noise, when it's under normal operating conditions, you shouldn't really hear much more than a hum if you were standing near it. Now, there is an emergency generator there, so when that would have to kick in, it's in a building, it would be designed with sound attenuation, but there is going to be noise associated with the emergency generator, as it would have to kick on or run through its operations. The intent is not to, and I apologize, I don't know offhand the direction of the louvers, but we actually considered which way we were actually pointing the louvers so they wouldn't be pointing it towards residences. So those are the two. As for property values, I can't answer that.
So,
go ahead. On that point, is there also vegetation that would be a little bit of a sound barrier between your property and this? I'm not sure where your
Well, what you have is we'd be putting up new vegetation here, trees and bushes here, and then it's fairly vegetated, at least in the summertime, or as the leaves come out, from basically the riverfront and the wetland from Little Pond between the two properties, but.
I can hear the trucks. That's Walmart. Right behind there's Walmart.
Yeah, Walmart's up here.
The trucks, I can hear the trucks from Walmart, from my house.
Okay.
And there's vegetation there now, so. I don't know if that answers your question.
I'm going to suggest that your third question had to do with property values, and I think that you might make an appointment to see the Director of Assessing, and she might be able to help you with that, because there are other lift station areas in neighborhoods, and she could probably tell you whether or not any of those property values have declined or stayed the same or whatever. Okay. Anybody else have a comment? Yes.
Good evening. My
Good
name is
evening.
Pat Hanley. My residency is beside, I think, if you bring up the treated water.
Number one.
Alphonse?
Okay. My house is right beside that property. No, that's all right, got one, thank you. In October, the DEP did a perk test as a result, the flow was overestimated and of how much would be absorbed. And as a result of it not absorbing correctly, they are redoing the test again. The DEP is now doing a new perk test, but the results will not be finalized until December. Then the public will have a right to review it before it is approved for a groundwater discharge permit. So what I'm asking you tonight is, maybe you could just kind of hold that up a little bit until they iron out all the kinks that are affiliated with this particular site. Site 7 is supposed to be very critical to this plan, but it's not working right now. So until the DEP approves it, the groundwater permit, I'm asking you to really consider it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Hanley.
Matt Hanley, 710 Thomas B. Landers Road. This is my mother. We obviously share the same residence. Can I borrow that laser pointer? This box right here is our house. My family's lived out there for 30-plus years. When they were doing the perk test, I actually walked out to observe the perk test, and the DEP, the inspector from the DEP, mistaked me for a DPW worker. During my time there, I witnessed the DEP saying that the perk test wasn't performing to the estimated flow by DHB. DHB has planned all the rest of the beds for the town of Falmouth. I believe this is the 4th time that we've had to relocate the beds because they haven't performed to the proper flow rates, or the affluent hasn't went to the areas that they said it was going to go to. Now, we've been playing whack-a-mole out here at the waste treatment site, and every time we change the site of the bed, it ends up someplace else where we didn't want it to go, and it's negatively infected that area. So now we have the same company doing another plan. They're saying that it's going to perform this way. How do we know that this is not going to impact Crocker Pond? And to tell you the truth, we have like 4 beds that we use now. Now they're saying these 2 beds are going to flow more than the 4 beds that are here. Now, the wastewater committee must know, because I've seen 2 drawings, because my family is very involved in this because it impacts our property. This gentleman's here is very right. How is this going to affect his house? How is this going to affect our house? Are we going to have smell? I'd be very concerned if I had a pump station, because I've driven past the one coming down the highway, and I'm just driving by and I can smell it. I wouldn't want it next to my house. And I'm very concerned that there's going to be negative effects on our property with Site 7, especially if it's not performing properly. I brought to the town's attention that this area has a large clay deposit, and it's terminal moraine. There's boulders the size of Volkswagens in there. So I don't believe they're going to be able to develop a 2-bed site to handle the flow that they want. So they're going to have to go to the 4-bed site, which is the other drawing that the town of Falmouth is not presenting to the town. At the end, is the 4-bed site in your cost analysis for what it's going to cost the town? And has the town taken into consideration when they pay a contractor to come in and put the piping in, and if they're encountering boulders the size of Volkswagens, are they going to dig them up and move them? Are they going to blast them? What's the cost involved with that? So I like to look at the town's business as my business, because I'm a taxpayer in the town of Falmouth, and I don't want my taxes to go through the roof. And if small details like this are being overlooked, these are small details. This is one little section of the project, and this section of the project has everything to do with everything else. So I'm very concerned about it. I'm keeping an eye on it. I think that the residents that are by the existing wastewater facility wish they were a little more involved with the project. They wouldn't have the negative effects that they have with smell and with the wind turbines. So I'm going to keep an eye on this. I think that we should table this until we have more information, until the DEP comes out with how actually is this site performing? Is it going to be an appropriate site before we dump more money into a site that's not going to work for us?
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you, Mr. Hammond. Is there anyone else who would like to comment? Yes, sir. Greg? Yeah, did you want to, after him? Okay.
Actually, you answered his questions.
No, listen, this is just a public comment period. We're happy to hear your comments. If you want information, we would suggest that outside this meeting, you contact the people and get your information.
Okay,
Okay?
so if I'm just up here with 3 questions, I should just contact them?
Well, you can ask the questions.
Oh.
And then if he can answer them here, fine. But this is really a public comment period to tell us what your concerns are.
Okay.
So that somehow we can find a way to get them answered. But if they're quick and he can answer them quickly.
Okay?
But that's, okay,
Thank you. And thank you for this opportunity.
right.
My name is Hugh O'Doherty. I live in 715 Thomas Landers Road, so if I can borrow that. Put it on the side, okay. Point it this way? Oops, this way, okay, all right. So Matt commented where his house is, and so we're across the street over here, okay? All right. First of all, I wanted to thank the wastewater superintendent and his office for advising us of this meeting and making sure that we got the letter to them, which was really great. My questions are, what are water treatment recharge beds? I had a question, I guess Matt also answered, or question asked. In the letter that we received, it depicts the area being all the way out to the exit ramp of 28 on this. And yet this only depicts maybe 40% of that area. So I'm wondering what the difference is between that and this. And I also wanted to know about air quality, not just odor, but things that I can't necessarily smell. We live a half a mile downwind of wind 2. Okay, so we are a half mile, pretty much essentially northeast of wind 2. So when the wind is just out of the southwest, we hear it. If the wind is 20 degrees either side of southwest, we hear the wind 2. So my concern is, particularly if it's, well...
You have to take them, excuse me, you have to take the microphone with you.
My concern is that there's an area that I could conceivably, a much larger geographic area, or excuse me, a much wider range of wind direction. Instead of just being, in the case of wind 2 and the noise, I can hear it 30 degrees either side of being downwind, okay? This would give me, if this thing were all the way over there and there were wind blowing in basically wind directions that go basically in a range of 90 degrees, basically 1/4 of the face of a compass, okay? I'm concerned what is in that air that's going to be blown my way. Not just what smells, but what I won't be smelling. And I think that's it.
I can at least answer question 2, having to do with the land that's shown on the map. That's the entire parcel that was switched with the Steamship Authority.
Okay.
it is not showing that that whole parcel is going to be used for beds, but that's just showing on the map where the parcel is that was switched.
Okay. So is there thoughts of expanding it after this is built?
No.
At this time, there's no, oh, okay, all right. And do I, I guess I find out after he speaks as to
Well,
what
is
further
that
questions.
something you can respond to now?
I can respond to it, yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
So just to clarify a few items, we have submitted the groundwater discharge permit to the state, and they are in the process of reviewing it. We did do percolation tests and hydraulic load tests at the site. We did have one location where we had some soils where DEP was concerned, and we went out and did additional testing to make sure, and also dug below to see what the conditions were at that site, and ran perk tests that were acceptable to the state and were in compliance with what we were expecting out there. We are not looking to enlarge the beds. There is no plan to build the 2 beds over here for a number of different reasons. So all we're looking at is these 2 beds as they're proposed. Let's see, as was clarified, the property line, and I apologize because it's a little hard to see, but the reason it showed the Steamship Authority and then obviously the town's property is a large parcel below that. We don't anticipate any odors from this facility. It operates just like the other effluent beds. It goes through the full treatment process and is treated effluent, and then it's just recharged. It's essentially just water going out there. So that is the general operation of these facilities.
So
I think I covered all the.
That was just a little squishy on the, we don't anticipate. Is it
Anticipate-
impossible
anticipate
to
what?
build 2 other beds, or no?
No, we're not proposing any other. Is it possible? Is a question of, yeah, there's space there. If you did, there's space on other places. It's kind of an open-ended question, but that's not what's being proposed. As part of this project, the only thing we are proposing are these 2 sand beds. We're not proposing anything now or in the, as part of this project or in the future for something. That was part of preliminary design back before it went through the water quality, and there was all kinds of discussions about a bunch of other issues related to the project. And these 2 beds were designed to handle the flow from the Little Pond service area, and that's what they were designed for, and that was it. So there is no plan to do anything else now or in the future.
Doug?
It's, maybe.
I wanted to clarify one other thing. We designed these. We didn't design any of the other beds at the facility, just to clarify that there have been 2 other consultants that worked on this facility with regards to the beds and their design.
I'm not sure if this is for you or for Mrs. Patanis. It's a word that we throw out there all the time, and I would love to have clarified as to what effluent is. I think it sounds much worse than it is, and that it's.
Jeff, why don't you,
It is what comes out of, it is what is recharged out of your treated facility. So this goes through secondary and essentially nutrient removal as well, treatment process, so it's a high level of treatment, much higher than anything you get out of a septic system or the like. So that's what effluent is, and then it's
not sewage water. It is
no, it
highly,
is
highly
no,
treated
it's
water.
highly treated water as it's come through your treatment process down at the plant, and then it gets recharged just out at the beds.
Is it any way similar to water that would be treated through an SBR, a sequence batch reactor?
Well, that's what you
Like
have.
there's one at the Seacrest?
That's what you have.
That's exactly what you have.
You have a sequencing batch reactor, and then you have disinfection, and you have nitrogen, you have a polishing filter, you have a bunch of other things beyond just a sequencing batch reactor, but that's what it is.
So that's exactly, that's treated the same way as the way that waste is treated at the Seacrest?
I'm not familiar with the Seacrest.
In their parking lot, and there are never any odors from that, ever. and it's sitting right there in the parking lot. I mean, you park your car next to it, and you don't even know what it is, but it's an SBR, which is similar to that, and there is absolutely no odor at all. I've been down there, I've been through the building itself, and I've been in the building, and there's no odor, so that's very positive. Thank you for that comment. Ray, you gonna correct me?
It's an RBC, a rotating biological contact.
Oh, it's not an SBR.
Ours is an SBR, a sequencing batch reactor. Very similar, though.
Okay, thanks. All right, Maury, you're next.
Maury Harlow Hawks, West Falmouth. You made a comment about our concerns, and I think the major concern is that over the years since our first sewer treatment plant, all the promises that everybody, the engineers, the consultants, we didn't get what we were told, and I think that's the problem right now, is the Hanleys have brought up a point that the perk test might not be correct, or they might have to do more, and this town always seems to want to run into things headlong and then pay the consequences after. Why can't you wait till December? Wait till the DEP brings these back.
We're not voting anything tonight. This is the beginning of a 35-day comment period, which will run to almost the end of December.
And no disrespect to the engineers, but we were told when the first sewer treatment plant came into Falmouth how wonderful it was, how it was going to treat everything. I live in West Falmouth, and I haven't been able to shellfish. Well, now you can, off-season. But the ramifications of the engineers and their magic, we paid the price. And I think that, again, Crocker Pond, again, we're putting, sewering on top of a moraine that goes down to the water, and most people don't put their outhouses on the top of the hill, and I just think that this town needs to get smart. And just because it's a convenient site, and it's in West Falmouth, and it's where we have land, we need to think long and hard. And I know you've done a lot of studies in engineering, but they did that on the first one, and we are paying the price still.
Thank you, Maureen. All right, anyone else?
Do you want me to direct my further questions?
Yes, that would be nice if you would. Yeah, because we'd like to really end this if we can. Is there anyone else who really would like to speak? If not, then we'll have a motion to close the hearing tonight.
To close it or continue it?
To
Well,
close this hearing
to close
tonight,
it
but the
and begin the
public
comment
comment
period.
period will begin for another 35 days.
Which will only be written.
That's right.
If we close the hearing.
Right. So a motion to close the hearing.
I move we close the hearing.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Mr. Gregg, Jerry, all those lady people who came. Okay, next we'll give you a minute to leave quietly so we can move on with our next part of our agenda, which is a fee hearing on the Recreation Department. Would you please take your conversations outside? Ladies.
You've never seen such a nice affection.
I know, it's a long time.
That's good. More civil.
Well, I just found
I'm sure it was just an accident.
two. Doesn't belong to me. Did you drop it, Heather?
No, I did.
You did? All right, Helen, this is for you. If you recall, when we had our fee hearing a couple of weeks ago, we talked about the field use fee. This is a one-day field fee for teams that are not made up of 100% of Falmouth residents. And I think Helen gave us a very excellent explanation of what those teams are. And they're really outside groups, they're travel groups that come in. So the proposal is to not charge any team that is 100% Falmouth residents, but for those who are not, the fee is $100. Is that correct?
Per day, not per hour, per day.
Per day.
Per day.
Any questions about that? Anybody have, Becky?
How do you determine Falmouth residents and not? I
Well,
mean,
what we
is
do
it?
in the case of a travel team that we know that is not a Falmouth, a recreation department team, or a Babe Ruth baseball team, or another team, we ask them for their rosters, and that lists them where they live. This is the Recreation Committee took a look at this because this is an increasing issue where we're having travel teams are forming, which are basically club travel elite teams that are being made up from all Upper Cape area towns. And interesting enough, I've done a lot of research on this, and all the other Cape towns aren't providing them a place to play, because either they don't have a place to play, don't have any space for them, or their fee is very high. So the word is out that Falmouth, we don't charge anything, so it's something that we need to take a look at. I'll give you an example of one of these travel teams. They played 20 games in Falmouth. They never played anyplace else because all the teams that they played couldn't get fields, or the expense was so much that they didn't play. They played all their games in Falmouth. And that's taxing our facilities. As it is now, we don't have enough fields for every one of our Falmouth teams. Just kids that are made up of all Falmouth kids.
I would move approval of the field use one-day field fee for teams not made up of 100% Falmouth residents at $100.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
Thank you.
Thanks, Helen. Okay, the next is a request for a sign variance, and this is an off-premise sign, sandwich board signs, the Falmouth Corral. We did receive a recommendation from the Design Review Committee, and they are in full support of approving these, and I know they have requested these previously in the past for the holiday season.
I move approval.
A second.
Good. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. And now we're going to move on to general business. And the first item we have is to vote to affirm the appointment of a new water superintendent, Mr. Stephen Rafferty. His name has been proposed by the town manager to fill the position of water superintendent. Hi, Mr. Rafferty.
Good evening.
Would you like to make a comment? That would be nice.
I'm absolutely thrilled that the town, in their wisdom, chose to offer me this position. I'm happy to accept it. I look forward to the challenge of working with this great community further. I hope that my qualifications match up to the demands of the job.
Well, as we all know, Mr. Rafferty's been a member of the Board of Health for quite a while, and he was also one of the first appointees, along with a few others, to the Water Quality Management Committee, and the committee before that, which was the Comprehensive Wastewater Management Committee. Were you on that one, too?
It's so long ago.
I know, it's been a long time, hasn't it?
The wastewater went through a couple of evolutions, yes.
So,
But more importantly, I've worked in or around municipal government for my entire professional career. I'm very familiar with the demands of this job, in particular with the fact that we're putting a new water treatment plant together and online while trying to keep the department running efficiently and going forward. There'll be a challenge there, but it's a challenge I look forward to excelling at.
Great. Sam?
Were you the designated project manager for CDM Smith? And if so, would you be serving in that capacity as a town employee?
The answer is yes and no. Yes to the first and no to the second. I have, for the last year, been serving in an official capacity that the state requires on all capital projects involving Chapter 149 building construction over $25 million. That the community have somebody called an owner's project manager to monitor between the engineer and the contractor, even when they show up, that everybody's adhering to the rules and being fair, and there's a good schedule and it stays on budget. The contract I've been working under is with the firm, CDM, that has been employing me. That contract ends at the point of which we go to bid, which is imminent here. I have gone through with town council under a conflict of interest determination. The contract with my past firm is not going forward, and so it's all clean and straightforward.
So somebody else is going to serve as our...
Somebody else will, well, there's two possibilities here, neither one of which I think have been quite worked out, and I think that will get worked out once I am working for the town. The state law does allow the town to designate a qualified individual within the community to serve as the owner's project manager, but it may or may not be in the town's best interest to go out and do a separate solicitation for another individual, and I don't know that that determination has yet been made. I think that involves, once I am working for the town, some consultation both with my supervisor, Ray Jack, at the DPW, as well as with Julian and others, as how the town would like to proceed to protect the town's interests in the best manner means.
So it's a possibility that you may serve in that function.
I could. I mean, in terms of qualifications, I believe I could, but that's up to the town to decide if that's their best interest and we do both jobs.
Becky?
I'd like to make a personal comment. So I'm reading pages, and I'm incredibly impressed. And so now I have just a resume of your job, and the first words that pop out to me is Fitzwillies. And I thought, well, isn't this interesting? I'm glad you see some humor there, because I certainly did. And I just didn't think about it, and then you went to the National Food Store, and you don't remember any of their phone numbers or the supervisor. I just want to tell you, of all of them I've read, I was incredibly impressed with what pertains to your job today. But I was kind of amused to read about Fitzwillies.
For those of you that don't get this, if you went to UMass back in the 70s, among various places out in the Happy Valley, as we referred to it, that one could go to, was Fitzwillies over in Northampton, and I was fortunate enough to be a line cook there. And I can remember the first name of my boss, but when the town's form asked me for the name of my boss and their phone number, I had a hard time going back 38 years to remember his last name, let alone if he was there and what his phone number might be.
After I read all of this, I was incredibly impressed, and I just found some humor in that, and I was going to share that with you.
Okay. Doug?
I just really hope that it can work out, that you can still be on the Board of Health, because certainly
Actually, that has been worked out. That, again, went through town council and conflict of interest and special town employees. So we've cleared both of those hurdles, and we're all legal. And
Great.
Because I know that your assistance in that has been very important, so.
Yes, indeed.
Yep. That was background precursor to getting to tonight.
Madam Chairman,
Yeah.
If I might just comment about how absolutely delighted we are to be able to bring a professional of Steve's caliber and experience to the position of water and superintendent. So it's an extraordinary pleasure to do that and bring that forward tonight. And Steve was chosen from a number of candidates that applied for this position after an extensive and exhaustive search and an interview process as well. So we're particularly pleased to of his interest and to be able to bring that recommendation to the board this evening.
We don't have to waive any residency requirements, right?
Correct.
I would move affirmation of the appointment of Stephen Rafferty as the water superintendent.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you,
Thank you.
Steve. Look forward to working with you, for sure. Okay, the next item is a follow-up discussion on the November town meeting. And obviously, there were a number of things that we might want to comment on. I don't know how much or how long we want to do this. But one of the areas that we did want to mention is the White Pine Road taking. And before we do, I know that some of you are new, and some of you probably have not even been here long enough to know that we have a road program. And I asked Heather to just briefly summarize what it is and how it got started, what it means, and how we use it. So Heather, if you would.
Sure. The Board of Selectmen adopted a 100% betterment program, and I'm just going to hand down both the letter that I shared with Ms. Favreau back in February, along with the materials related to that program. It was established by a special act going back to the early to mid-90s. The town has hundreds and hundreds of private roads in town, and the community was really demanding service from the town to improve those ways and take them as public roads. We didn't have the funding in place to take that on. The number I heard at the time was $200 million if we were going to do them all at the same time. So we developed a program with the help of the legislature to have a revolving fund by which the town would invest in a public way, in a private way, take it as a private way, make those improvements, and those payments come back to the town over time. That program has been very successful. We've taken, 50, 60 roads in the last 10 years, and we continue to do that. It is not fast. It is a slow program. If you're aware of the two more recent neighborhoods, the Shumet Valley neighborhood was improved over the last 3 years. That project has not been committed to the assessors, so their revenues associated with that have not started to come back to the town. The Elizabeth Jean Drive neighborhood that I think you're aware of was adopted at a prior town meeting, and that will come on this spring. We'll invest in those, and those funds will come back to the town to take on the next road. So it is a slow program. We've been somewhat successful with that. What I'm going to pass down to you now is the list of the roads that remain with petitions on file. Some of them are under the 100% betterment program. Some of them are just seeking to have their way taken as a public road. The Board of Selectmen currently has only a policy for taking roads under the Betterment Act. There isn't a policy for taking roads that are simply requested for improvement as a direct petition. So we communicated on that. We received the petition from Ms. Favreau that appeared before town meeting, and town meetings provided us feedback that it looks to us to advance that process moving forward. So there really are two separate issues. There's the issue of taking the way. The town's prohibited from making investments on private ways, so the road has to become a public way before investment can be made. And the second piece is who pays and when, and that's the betterment piece. We've always done them together. This looks as though it will go separately, taking a look at the taking issue and then the funding issue separately. So that's really the backdrop on that. You can see there are still several roads on that list. We had a key threshold to a gateway to participate in that program, and that gateway was that you needed to have a written description and taking plans on file. And that really engaged the neighborhood in investing and saying, we're willing to spend what it takes to have the layout plans performed and executed for the Board of Selectmen to take action and then take that on to town meeting. And that's the process we've really been involved in for the better part of the last 12 or 13 years. And that's just a little bit of the background.
I think the other thing that's important to mention too is there is the legal definition of a public road.
Correct.
A public road, just because cars travel on it doesn't make it a public road. And I think it's about 55 to 60% of the roads in Falmouth are private roads. They're not public roads. And there are many, as Heather said, many people who would like to have their roads accepted as public roads. But in order to do that, those roads, the town has certain requirements that a road must meet to become a public road, and they have to do with the, the DPW has the legal definitions. A road has to meet certain criteria before the town will take it. And usually what we have done in the past too is if a road is in really bad disrepair, and really it's going to cost a lot of money to bring it up to meet the criteria of a public way, we've often not done those first. We've done the ones that are the least costly to do over the last 15 to 20 years. That's pretty much how it's gone. Not to say that everything is cast in stone, because it isn't. And so now, go ahead.
We've taken them in the order that they've come in.
That's
They've been
right.
petitioned. So when the petition comes in, as soon as we have the funds available to take the next one, we do that. There was a moratorium placed on this program in 2006. Elizabeth Jean Drive was the last road that had a petition and plans in. We've just, we haven't even accomplished that one. That will happen this spring. And then we can go ahead and reopen it, take a look at what the funding cycle is and what the next road we can move forward on is. But that's that program. The issue, I think, from town meeting is something that is outside of that program.
So, and the other thing, I think, we did have to get a home rule petition in order to create an account, a revolving account, so that as the betterments came in from the other roads that were done, it would go into that revolving account, and that would be the basis for doing future roads, because we didn't have the funding. And since 2008, when the economy tanked, that's why we really haven't done much until just recently, because we haven't had any funding to put into the roads, pretty much. So that's kind of the past history. So that's how we are where we are today.
Can I talk a little bit about moving forward?
Yes.
There's a couple of pieces that the board needs to consider. The road taking process needs to happen if there's going to be any investment on White Pine Lane. That requires the road taking plan and description. That needs to be prepared by a professional surveyor, and there's a process. I think town council gave you an outline of that detailed process.
Did you see that email from?
It begins with a vote of this board of your intention to lay out the plan. You refer that to the planning board, and then the formal plan comes back to a public hearing. There are some timeframes that require the public hearing and the vote to occur in certain relation to town meeting, so there are some very specific steps that need to happen, but the first one really is to have the appropriate layout plan prepared.
How do, pardon me, through the chair, how do the residents on the road get notified of the fact that this could potentially cost them a substantial betterment? I mean, how do they get notified of the decision? Do we first speak with them about?
That is a decision of this board, whether this project would be funded under the Betterment Act or with municipal funds.
We would be required to have a betterment hearing, and they would all have to be notified of the hearing and go through that process.
But I want to be clear, that's not been determined in this case.
Right.
That's the board's decision to make.
And the first step can either be that petition of 51%, or we can initiate it. Is that correct, that either initiation can happen?
We have a petition on file from White Pine Lane seeking to have their road taken as a public way. You do not have a petition from the owners agreeing to participate under the Betterment Program.
The other way that you can do it is through a private road district, and you probably are familiar with that. If you want your road taken as a public way, you contact the town clerk, and then the process there is the town clerk convenes a meeting of the people who live on the road, and then what happens there is, though, it means it's not really a betterment, is it? It means that the homeowners have to go out and find someone, to get a cost of what the road would be. And then they have to share the cost equally among themselves. And then that way, then the road can be taken through that particular process, which is different from this process. And we have a couple roads that have gone through the private road district. One was Ransom Road, and most recently Highfield Drive. That was all done as a private road district, where all the abutters of the road agreed to pay a certain amount of money, and they hired the contractor, and the contractor did the work, and they paid the contractor, and then the town, I don't think we have had that vote yet. I don't think it was actually, I don't think it actually was done to become a public way. It was just done as a private road district. So it doesn't become a public way then. But that's another way of doing it.
But really, step one is to have the plans prepared. And the question comes, is that something that the town incurs and asks the engineering department to proceed with that process? I don't know what their capacity is to do that. Is it something you go back to town meeting and ask for the funds to do that? Have those road-taking plans prepared, but that really is the first step, is to get the plans prepared.
I would think that would be the first step after the abutters and the people that live on the street are consulted. I would hate to have I've been on this street, I've seen You know, it's right near the lake, it's a beautiful neighborhood, but there is a huge disparity, you know, in the condition of properties, the elevation of properties, and,
Is that
you know,
hill?
it seems that some properties would, you know, I don't know where the lines are and where the, you know, where the buffer zone or the boundary that the town can work on is, but there may be, you know, people may have strong feelings about what the town is proposing to do in their front yards.
Some
So-
land would have to be taken to make it a wide enough road to be a town road.
I think that would be startling to a property owner to find out that this had proceeded, or that the town had spent any money whatsoever without consulting them. I would wonder if there's a process where
Well,
people could be
Well,
notified
we
in
couldn't
advance.
because it's a private road. I mean, we couldn't do anything on their property unless it was agreed to by all the abutters. We couldn't do that
Unless we took it by eminent domain to be.
unless we took it by eminent domain.
And so we could spend money on an engineering study, and then everyone could be up in arms and not want, you know, that proposal. I think that would be money wasted.
I think we're talking I think we're talking eight homes, 4 on each side. Because when you come up that road, it's paved, and that's for the first 6 on each side. So it's the last 4 that are going up to that road that is parallel to the pond.
It'd have to be joined though.
But it has to be all
And
all
wide
has
enough
to be
and all
done.
legal, it
That
has to
was
be
just
on-
an
So the one
easement.
that is already paved has to be repaved. You have to
lay out the road. That was just done as an easement, a drainage
Okay.
easement. So the whole road would have to be laid out
Oh,
with
from the top of the
boundaries
hill
from
all the way to Sandwich?
from Sandwich Road to the end of the road,
Okay.
up at the top of the
Okay.
hill, I would assume,
And right now, town roads are encouraged to have sidewalks.
right?
And so the width of this road is would end up being much, much wider than it is right now, which would involve
Okay.
people's property having to be used
I didn't
for-
realize we were doing the part that was already, it's already
Oh,
paved.
because that's just a drainage easement, and that was just paved over to help with the drainage easement. It's not really the paved road. It's just asphalt. Yeah.
It's better than what the other.
Well, yes, it is better than what's up
Yeah,
further
sure
up, yeah.
is, yeah.
So I guess that's the question. The question is, if the people who live on the road would have to what? They
They've-
would have to get together and petition the town, or we contact them and,
You have a petition.
We already
from-
have the
From White Pine Lane, submitted in,
52312.
yeah, 2012,
Where's
seeking to
that on
have
the
the road,
list?
it's
White Pine Lane.
Oh, I
1,
see it,
2,
okay.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7 up from the bottom.
okay.
It was submitted to the town to have the road taken as a public way. They did not submit it under the Betterment Act, and you can see, maybe it doesn't say that on here, but it was not submitted under the Betterment Act, but it was submitted as a petition to have the road taken as a public way. We received that 2 years ago.
And that was, we only know that was from 51%. We don't know if that was from everybody, but the requirement of the petition is it has to be 51% for us to
Yeah,
consider it.
we could go back and take a look at that, I don't know.
So should we go back and look at that petition first and see what it encompasses? I mean,
We could do that, yes.
Well, and just, their petition may not have understood what it means to have a town road built on their property. So I think the question is that we need to go back to them and say, are you aware of, you know, not necessarily doing a formal layout, but the general guidelines as to what town roads look like? And make sure that they are all in agreement, at least on the superficial level, before we take any steps further.
Sam?
Yeah, I was just wondering whether there is a less expensive step, and maybe Peter McConaughey can answer this, where you could just do a conceptual layout of what the road would be like if we took it over, and show how much of the abutting property would have to be dedicated to that road improvement. And then take it to the abutters and say, this is what it's going to look like, you know, are you willing to buy in at this point? I don't, you know, I'm just, without going to surveying formally, but just kind of doing
A conceptual plan?
conceptual plan.
Peter, you want to respond to that?
So am I throwing you under the bus?
Yep.
Actually, no, actually, the roadway is a pretty simple roadway. It's 700 feet long, it's a straight road, there's no angles in it. It's a straight road. 400 feet of it's been paved, 300 feet of it still needs to be paved. It's absolutely correct. If we went to go in there to do the road over, we'd be milling that asphalt in the first portion of the roadway and overlaying it, so the integrity of the whole road will be as one, be a full as one. We've already looked at it, we've been on site, we've met on site, so we already pretty much know what it needs for drainage, we know what it needs for asphalt, so we kind of come up with a general cost estimate for it, so, yeah. So where it is right now is Heather is exactly right, the taking plan would need to be developed. Well, the plans after the petition would need to be developed and then go from there. Then we could break them up to the abutters. I think there's 12 houses on that road, but I think two of them are on Sandwich or on either on Lake Shore or on Sandwich. Yeah.
Their driveways are up on Lake Shore.
Lake Shore.
Yeah,
So what we're looking at is it'd be 700 feet wide, 700 feet long, and we do 24 feet wide for the roadway layout. That includes the berm on each side. But that roadway, there's a lot of washout in that roadway, so just to bring it back up, there was one photo at town meeting that showed there was an 18-inch difference in the side of the road. So if you average that out over between 12 feet, say it's 9 inches times 300 feet, you calc that out with the tonnage, that's going to be some heavy equipment that the contractor would have to go in there to be able to, just to bring it up, because I think the last time we met out there, I think the gas line is close to the surface. I don't know, it might be within 6 inches of the surface, so.
So would an appropriate thing be to get the cost estimates, get the layout, and go to town meeting in April and ask town meeting for the funding to do this?
I think the appropriate, is check the petition, get the plans set up, and then go from there. Usually what happens is, in all the roads, since I started, Heather's been doing it for a lot longer than me, but since I started with the roadways, the petitioners come up with a road taking plan, and then it's requested by the Public Works Department to go out and do a cost estimate, because we bring it up to Public Works standards, what we do. So to make sure of that, then we go out and do the cost estimate on it, just to what we would do.
My concern about following the plan I suggested is that's completely going in the face of what our procedure is for any other road. And to set that standard and saying, we have a system in place, we have a policy voted by the board, and we're going to ignore it and go in a different direction does concern me.
Well, I think what that would do is, we've had a lot of, Heather mentioned the Shumat Valley, the Seatuckets, the Elizabeth Jeans, all the roadways that we've taken over, and we took 17 or 18 of them in 2007. I think that would raise some concern.
An issue of fairness.
Well, I think there'd be raised some concerns for those people, so however it works, I think it'd have to be done.
We'll give you a chance in a few minutes.
Under the betterment, if it's being done under the betterment process, it would have to follow the same guidelines. And I think Frank Duffy said it exactly right last week, and when someone asked him, what is this, and he said, I don't know. Because we did it kind of in reverse than going through that he was not sure, because we did it in reverse and going through the full 5 steps at the beginning.
Well, I know that the board and Heather's been taken to task for not having given Mrs. Favreau some suggestions of how to do the process. And we do have a letter from Heather on February 4th detailing exactly what the process is and exactly how you're supposed to go through this. So I do want to at least defend the action on part of the management that we've done what we are.
Back in February of this year.
Right.
Yeah, so that's true.
So, do we need to have, I am concerned about, all of these other people who may have similar issues and have been waiting for the process. And so is the next step to have town council figure out how we can, without spending unnecessary money in doing an engineering plan and cost estimate, first can really get the abutters approval, or how does that work?
Well, it would seem to me that in the issue of fairness, we do have an issue of fairness, because all the roads they've done on the 100% betterment. So I think we would have to provide notice to all the abutters that this project has come before us, and it actually went before town meeting and received a positive vote of town meeting. So we are now responding to the abutters, and I would think we would have to let them know that we would normally do this under the betterment, and ask them if they would be willing to have their roads improved under the betterment. In other words, take them out from the 21 down on the list and move them up to the top of the list? And would they, once we had the surveys done and know what the costs are, ask them if they would be willing to have this road improved under the betterment? And then I think that would tell us what our next step should be. They would have to know what the costs are, and we would have to know if they were willing to assume those costs under the betterment.
That would make a lot of sense. I mean, the properties right next to the lake, they're a lot of very nice homes. They're, it's going to increase their value to each homeowner as the road is improved. That idea makes sense, but I see Heather is
Go
getting
ahead.
your attention for a comment.
And then we'll get to you.
Well, I think you have a different paradigm here. This did not go the normal process. It went straight to town meeting.
Right.
Town meeting you have to interpret what town
Right.
meeting said, however you interpret that. But if you want to move this forward, I think you need to have the plan, a real taking plan prepared. Have that done, have a real cost estimate done by the Department of Public Works, give you something really legitimate to hold a public hearing on, under the Betterment Act and under the Road Taking Act, and it's the Board of Selectmen's discretion to determine what the betterment is. You might determine that you recommend 0. You might determine that you recommend 50%. But if those property owners don't know what the scale of impact is, town meeting really has just placed this back, on our collective responsibility to address this. So I personally think you need to have the taking plan, you need to have a cost estimate, and you need to go through a formal
Well,
process.
that's really kind of what I'm suggesting,
Yeah.
that we go through this whole process, and we have our own engineering department do the layout and do the plan, and then hold a betterment hearing with all the abutters, and then go from there.
And so we would need town meeting's permission to spend however much money that would entail. That would be the next step?
I don't think we need to. I
I
think we
thought
can.
Heather suggested.
No, we do. We have to have an article in town meeting, because even if it's done under the betterment, the town still has to front the money.
Not for the contract, the money for.
Oh, not for
asking
the design.
For the design and layout. We can authorize our Peter to do that.
I would just go step one. Step one is move forward with what the costs are and what the layout looks like, and then bring the matter back to the board, and the board can determine, do we want to use the road betterment fund? Is this an appropriate project for that fund, yes or no? If it's yes, then you move forward with the betterment process. If it's no, then you need to look for another source of funds.
But we don't need the funds for what you
No.
just mentioned, that's what I'm saying.
What is the cost of that, though? I'm interested in.
The layout and
Of
cost.
doing the layout?
And cost estimate?
The range we usually quote is, if you were going to have a private contractor do that work, it would be between $2,000 and $4,000.
Becky?
Thank you.
How long does it take from the time you have the plan until the end of the project? How many years? Because I'm looking, are you like 6 to 8 years to get this done?
Under the betterment program, yes.
And is there any special reason it's 6 to 8 years to get that paperwork done?
It's not paperwork, it's the revolving of the funds to be available to distribute.
It's the revolving
If
of
you
the
do it
funds.
based on this, yes, but if you bypass this
Right.
and just take this out of that process and move it forward, as Heather suggested, it could be done by the end of the year, maybe.
How does the money get into the funds that
From
do
the
this, that
betterment.
takes 6 to 8 years?
Every time we commit, let's just make up an estimate, say Shumat Valley was $400,000. We raise $400,000, we spend it on improving those roads, and those homeowners pay us back over 20 years. So every year we get a little bit more, and as we have a balance available, like we do now for Elizabeth Jean Drive, we'll then appropriate it to that road.
Okay, so it's basically the funds extended into that 6 to 8 year.
Correct.
Because what happens is, the town has to upfront the money, and we get the money back through the betterment, but it takes 20 years to do that. And so you kind of have to wait for those funds to come back before you can do other in the beginning, we were doing a lot of projects, I think, in the very beginning, when it was first.
We
offered.
seeded that fund with free cash.
Yeah, and then that's right, we did seed it, yeah. Sam?
Is it possible for town meeting to up the cap on that betterment fund so that we could actually take on more projects?
Well, the funds would have to come from somewhere. We would
Well,
have to find a place for them to come and ask town meeting to approve it.
Right. And so maybe it's a debt exclusion to provide the funds.
That's a possibility.
For that betterment fund, so that we could actually take more roads over and get the money coming back. But at least we would have expanded the capacity, if you will, of this betterment plan.
It's possible. We've never asked town meeting to do that
We've
under a
certainly
debt
heard
exclusion, but
way
it's,
more people talk to us about increasing the school budget, than increasing the betterment budget. You know,
But this is one that does pay itself back.
that's very true. It
This
does
is like
pay
a
itself.
revolving fund in a way, right? It
Yeah,
just gives us
it
a
is.
working fund so that we can actually take on more of these projects simultaneously, if you will.
But the CP money does come from
But
someplace.
we'd have to have a lot of money to do it. What's the average cost, would you say?
It really depends.
It depends on the road.
Okay.
And it depends on the condition of the road. We have some roads that weren't all that bad, that actually met the DPW, the public standards, and they didn't have a lot of work that had to be done.
So is it within our financial authority to request that a cost analysis and layout be done for this road?
I think if that's the board's will, we'll work with Peter and find a way. We just would ask for some patience because he does have many other projects on his plate.
So, could we ask him about what time he might be able to do it? 2 months, 3 months? I mean, when could we, if we asked you to do that project and lay out that road, when could we expect that you could do it?
I would have to imagine that this will go back to town meeting in the spring.
It would have to go back to town meeting in the spring.
If it goes back to town meeting in the spring, if you back it up, then you're talking mid-January or beginning of January, it would have to be completed for the Board of Selectmen
Oh,
vote.
that's
Or the
right.
town closing, then there's a Board of Selectmen vote.
That's a time schedule, I think, is far too expedited for us to accomplish, because that would require the board making all of its decisions about this, referring it to the planning board, and meeting all the timeframes associated with the road taking process, which is a 3 to 4 month process.
So it probably couldn't be done by the April town meeting.
I think there's far too more to the eye here. I think you need some time.
It's tight. Basically, right now, we're into December, so you got all of December with the holidays, and then you have a couple of weeks in January before gets set for the town meeting in spring, so.
Just to be clear, the alternative, there are 2 alternatives. Is one, you ask the homeowners to prepare the plan, or you go back to town meeting and ask town meeting to fund the plan. This is something that allows you to get to a decision a little more quickly.
Excuse me, so if I understood through you, Ms. Chair, if the homeowners were asked to prepare the plan, it may be done quicker.
That would be up to them. You could hire an engineer to do the work.
Wait a minute, no,
As opposed to.
we're just discussing this. We're not.
As opposed to us just deciding to spend $2,000 to $4,000
In time.
on this particular project, which already jumps all these folks. I'm just uncomfortable with that, notwithstanding wanting to respect town meetings' wishes that this, I respect town meetings' wishes that this be moved forward and looked at. I'm just not comfortable spending money to do that, if it could still be moved forward with having the homeowners actually do the engineering and planning, and that would also solve my concern about allowing the homeowners to know what's going on and to participate.
I'm leaning towards what Sue's saying, that I'd rather have the homeowners come up with a plan. If they come back and say they can't do that, I would then want to go to the April town meeting and ask town meeting to fund the plan.
That makes sense, then it moves forward.
And then even if we need to put a placeholder in January on that article, because we're not sure yet, but I'm a little concerned that if they can't fund the planning, but there's a possibility we're going to ask them to fund the betterment, they're not going to be able to fund that either. And even if it's even a 20%, 80% betterment, I just want to make sure the town meeting really knows the full price tag. That's one of the things they keep asking us to do, is don't agree to anything until the full price tag is given to them about it. And the price tag, we have no idea what the price tag is really of the plans or of the entire layout, but we still have the town meeting vote to tell us to do it.
Okay, so now we're looking at two different things. We're looking at asking Ms. Favreau to go back to her, we're just discussing, asking her to go back to the homeowners and ask them if they would be willing to hire someone to do the plant, which would cost be somewhere between $2,000 and $4,000, shared equally by all 12 homeowners, or however many there are, 10 homeowners. And then if they're not willing to do that, then, or for whatever reason, they come back and say they can't do that, then we have to reconsider that then and decide if we want to go before town meeting and ask town meeting to fund it. And then we have to find out from Peter what the cost is, and then put that money to put an article together for town meeting, and probably want to do more than just fund the plan, but go even further if we could and fund the project in some way. So that's kind of the options. Sam?
I guess what's bothering me, with all due respect, is the fact that we're taking this road out of sequence from all the other people who have requested to be considered for this betterment process. What's the basis for making a decision like that? Okay, now, on the other side, the fact that it's a connector that goes between two major town roads gives me some reason to say, okay, maybe this should get some preferential treatment. But I think we ought to be able to justify moving forward for this particular project, given the list of people who've already requested to be considered for this betterment process.
Well, the town meeting vote's what's pushing me.
Yeah, our town meeting vote is what's pushing us.
I'm not sure completely in their authority to do that, but I also do respect that the town meeting is expressing their desire, and I respect their desire to say, all right, well, let's see what we can do to push it forward, and to jump it above the list.
Through you, Madam Chair, I hear you, but I'm not sure the town meeting really was considering the implications of what they were deciding, whether it was fairly vetted out in that discussion. And so that's what gives me qualms about it. I think if we came back in the spring and asked them to pay for some portion of this process independent of the homeowners, then it would be an opportunity for us to lay it all out and say, do you realize that you've just jumped over this whole list of other people here? What are the reasons why it should go that way?
That's what we're proposing, and also, in the meantime, there's an avenue for the homeowners to move it ahead even quicker, if I understand the process correctly. And it would cost, maybe between $500 and $1,000 per homeowner, depending on.
I get nervous about that. A private surveyor would have to prepare the plan.
Okay.
So I think we should sort of declare our intent tonight, and then whatever we decide, ask Heather to meet with the homeowner, with Ms. Favreau, because we can't do this tonight. We can't sit here and negotiate with you tonight.
I couldn't say anything at the town meeting. I wasn't a member.
You sure you could?
Oh, yes, you can. If you're a resident, you can speak at town. When we get to some point where we want to move on it, you can comment on it.
Can I just say something?
Sure, go ahead.
The town meeting-
No, you have to use the microphone.
The town meeting members voted for this because we've been waiting since 1973, and you show me one resident that's on that list that's been waiting since then for the town to take it as a townway. That's what the papers said, and not once, but twice. And you show me on that list who has in their neighborhood not one, but 2 sober houses with 24 men going through with their trucks and pickup trucks and cars and vans all through the neighborhood. Why should we pay for a betterment on this street so that they can use our street? That's why they voted through, because they saw the injustice in this. And, you know something, I'd okay, I'm sure that some of them would probably okay it, but the ones that you already paved, which is 6 homes on this street, they're never gonna okay. So you're gonna put the burden of $4,000 on 4 houses?
No.
That can't afford
No,
it?
it doesn't work that way, Ms. Favreau. It has to be equally
But it was
apportioned.
already okayed.
No. Well, we're not going to clear this up tonight. It's a complicated issue, and we'll be happy to talk to you about it once the board
When?
decides which way it wants to go. I'd be happy to meet with you and Heather tomorrow, the next day, and go through this.
How about
And
Friday?
Friday would be fine.
We're closed.
Huh? Oh, you're not here Friday. Well, we'll figure a time out. We need to let the board get its work done here before we go forward. So, do you want to hear further from Ms. Favreau about this?
Well, perhaps,
She has something to
this is
say.
another.
And the
part
other,
of
yes, would you like to
should
speak
have
too?
an opportunity.
Okay, go ahead.
Virginia Butler, 19 White Pine. I enjoyed the library today, and I found out some things, and I was going to do it again tomorrow, but I found out about this meeting. In 1975, the town voted to raise the sum for Article 69, $4,800, passed by unanimous vote. So we haven't just started this process. This happened with our forefathers, 1973, 75. So in 1975, it was the Article 69 to take on the beginning where they said was a drainage problem. Well, to me, a drainage problem could be a tank in the ground. But for some reason, the DPW decided to do half the road. I mean half the road. It has the gutter sides and it's the whole width. As far as surveying this, it's been done 1, 2, 3 different times. And now you say we have to do it again. All the facts are still there. I compared the 2 of them from when the town presented it to the, anyhow, as far as I can figure, they may have already owned, this is a new light. I think the town already owns this road property from this article. I'm not good about the feet, but they bought 14,000 square feet. And the road was paved. I don't know when it was paved. I haven't been able to find that out yet. But it was paved. There's pavement under there. There's pavement under the new pavement. First of all, why did the DPW do that much paving for a problem that was the whole road? My house, the second one across from Joni, had 2 truckloads of the town take out from her driveway where the road just washed down. How did the dirt get there over blacktop? The town came in, because I used to go over when I heard some noises. The town came in after Hurricane Bob. They dumped truckloads of dirt so that they can make it level. And every time after that someone complained about potholes, they would dump a truckload and they would spread it out. And that's all the dirt went into the sides. Anyway, it's been surveyed 3 times. We haven't just started on this problem. It's been there. And yes, the DPW went overstepped. It was Owens that was in charge of it. When I approached him about doing a half a road, he said, oh, we don't do that. I mean, he had a lot of answers for everything. But I would like you to consider what the DPW did, why they did it, and how they got the money for that.
Okay.
That's what
Thank
I'd
you.
like to say.
All right, so you, I can't remember what we said. You were suggesting that we notify the abutters.
Or actually, I think it comes down to moving it, cost estimate to do the plans that Peter needs to do to town meeting.
Right.
And then we are progressing with town meeting's will.
So,
However, in the interim, of course, the abutters would have the option, I guess maybe we would notify them of the option, Heather, I'm not sure how that works, of coming up with their own survey or plan, whatever's necessary.
If the butters came up with their own plan in time for a spring article in the town meeting to have the town fund it, it could be done faster.
Correct.
Otherwise, in the Springtown meeting, we'll have an article asking for the town to fund the plan.
Right.
And then the November town meeting, an article to
For the
fund,
town to
fund the road.
Fund the road.
And last town meeting, what they want to do. Otherwise, it's an April, then a November town meeting,
Right.
if the town does
That's
it.
good.
And it's a
That's good.
Yeah.
I think
abutters
That's making
April
sense.
town meeting, if the abutters want to do it faster. I
Makes
think that's the way,
That makes
That
sense.
makes sense. So if
Okay.
all the abutters wish to fund the $2,000 or $4,000 to have the survey done, they could do that now, and we could move it forward in the April town meeting. If we have to pay for the surveys to be done, we have to put an article on the April town meeting to get the funding to do that, and then we'd be back in the fall. So we will then, I think, have communication with the abutters. And then we'll know probably within the next couple of weeks which direction we
and
need
what
to
we
go
as a
in.
board of selectmen can do is, if we do get that plan from the abutters,
Mhm.
we can then decide, is this going to be 100% betterment that we're asking the abutters to pay?
Mhm.
Is it going to be 100% betterment that we ask town meeting to pay, or is it some combination?
In between.
And then we can go
right.
to town meeting and say,
Exactly.
here's our recommendation of 50/50 or 70/20/30, and town meeting can say, nope. We're not
Okay,
gonna
Ms.
fund it.
Favreau. Sure.
There's no way that we could afford a survey, to survey the land. Is there a way, if we had to do a betterment over 20 years, that we could put, if it's not okay to do the survey, because as Jenny mentioned, it's been surveyed loads of times, and for us to pay $4,000 again is really unfair. But if we did do something like that, could all that cost be put into a betterment so that all 10 homes could pay for it?
I don't know if you can roll the survey into a betterment.
I don't want to answer that off. I believe you can.
We'd have to look
Yeah,
at
but
that.
we'd have
We
to
don't
look
know
at
if we
it.
can do that.
But in all honesty, it was passed because of the fact that this has been hanging since 1973.
Well, we have asked town council to go back and look at all those votes of town meeting to see exactly what was passed. And we will have the legal report from him as to what the status is of those various articles at town meeting.
Is
So
there a
you
way-
will have, you and your butters will have what is actually done or not done prior to this
I'll
point.
tell you, the 6 homes that already have their pavement, they're not going to contribute whatsoever.
Well, we
They
have
already
to
told
give
me.
each one the due process. Each abutter is entitled to due process on this and entitled to make their own decisions. And we will give each of them the opportunity to do that. And whatever that decision is, then we move to the next step, whichever course of action the board is proposing.
Because
But we-
oddly enough, they might not
I
want it.
really think
They
you're
may not want
overlooking
it.
They
the
may not
fact
want the other
that-
half of the road done at all, and it's their right to be able to express what
They're-
they want
what
also.
they want, yeah.
However, if I understood the town engineer correctly, to do the road, you would have to pull up the paved part anyway to get the correct engineering and drainage and all of that, is that correct?
Just remill it.
We'd mill it 1.5 and then overlay.
They're not gonna have
So
to-
that
The
would-
whole road.
that
We're
would-
we're talking
in
about
other words, what
300
I'm
Wait a minute,
saying,
wait a minute.
I think
One-
the abutters would still have to pay the betterment and would still get the benefit of the improved road. So I don't know that it would make
No,
sense not to
No,
participate.
they don't need to go up to that side of the road.
Ms. Favreau, the engineers make those decisions. We don't make them.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the people that have their pavement done on, they don't use the top part of the road. They go to Sandwich Road, they don't go to the
The
top where
point
the
we're
problem
making is the
is.
road gets done in its entirety. They're not only doing the dirt part, they're doing the entire road when this moves forward.
Yeah, But,
So they're not gonna want it, that's for sure.
Well, if they don't, then
Well-
that's only fair. is that-
yeah, but
Right.
it
We
already
can't-
got
Look,
passed.
please, excuse me, one person at a time, and you must be recognized, and you come to the microphone if you wish to speak. It's just that we need to have order in the discussion. So that's the
I
plan,
just
and
think
we
that
will get back
this
to
road
you.
has been really been pushed aside, and there's clear problems, and the traffic being the most horrible. It's not a private way. It's a very public way, and because of what was was pushed on this neighborhood with those sober houses, I think you're asking this road to bear the brunt of that, and I don't think that's fair.
Well,
And
we
stuff.
will
And
have.
if I could meet with you and Heather
We will
on Wednesday.
definitely meet with you as we move this process forward, very definitely. And I don't want to get into the sober houses, but those are federal laws. And locally,
There's 24,
but
there's
we have
24
no
men going
control
through that
over
street.
sober houses. They fall under the
I know, but
HUD.
usually it's only one.
Yeah,
This is two,
I
with
understand.
24 cars and trucks going through.
We really want to work with you, and we want to make this work for you and all the abutters. And we know it's difficult, and we know it's complicated, but we really want to make this happen if we can.
Okay,
So we
the
want to
vote-
work with you, not against you, believe me.
Okay, so what does this mean that the vote from the town meeting members approved? They could see that this
Well-
was not a very fair thing, and that's why they voted for it. They came up to me after and said, don't give up.
Well, you're not.
You have a
And-
point.
Well, we're not giving up either, because that's why we're here tonight.
Okay,
So we're gonna work with you, and we
Okay.
will be in touch very soon,
okay.
after tonight's meeting. We'll lay out what it is what the options are, and we'll get back to you by Friday? No, you won't be here Friday.
Town hall is closed on Friday.
That's right, town hall's closed on
How about
Friday because
Wednesday?
next week.
Next Monday?
I don't know, we'll have to look and see.
Okay.
We'll look and see,
Okay,
all right? We'll be in
Okay.
touch.
I really appreciate.
I know, and
I know that you're working hard towards it.
we do want to help you make this happen.
Okay.
So please have a nice
It's-
Thanksgiving.
I don't think it's fair that we have to pay so that other people
Well,
can use the road.
That's the law,
And
because
why can't White Pine Lane pay for it? Like, how about the
It's-
sober houses paying for it?
okay. All right, that's it.
Okay, thank you.
We're going to move on to the next item.
We don't take a vote?
Oh, we could take a vote on the process as you, why don't you propose it, and then we'll vote on it.
There's nothing on the agenda for a vote.
We don't have a vote on the agenda, so.
Okay.
No, we don't, we're just discussing it.
Okay, so we
But
just
can-
have
Yeah, we kind
there's
of,
no
we
need.
we pretty much know what the process is.
Okay. Got it.
All right, let's move on to license renewals. We have a whole long list of license renewals. I don't know that you want to read them all. Have you read them all?
I've read them all.
Do you wish to have each one of them read out loud?
I don't believe it's necessary if all of us have read them.
I do have a question on
Yes.
some of them.
Well, which page do you want to start on? I've got the
It's a
all
general-
alcohol
it's a gen-
restaurant
It's
license.
a general question I can just ask
Okay.
Mr. Suso. Do you know of any complaints that we've had on any of these places that are requesting license renewals? I know that there were some that we had heard on occupancy limits from the fire department. In my recollection, I don't see any of the ones that had problems on this list.
I don't either.
But would you, does anyone else feel that that's the case?
Nothing jumped out at me.
No, the ones that I saw the complaints, and they are not on this list.
Okay.
And I think they are going to be scheduled for a separate public hearing.
Okay, great. Then if we can, I would move approval of the license renewals as we have listed on our sheets here,
All of them?
all of them.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. And selectmen's reports? Anybody have any reports they wish to make? Sam?
Given the time, I'm going to pass.
Sure enough.
I've been plenty busy, but, well, can I mention one?
Yeah.
At least, and you were there, and that was the Cape Cod Selectmen's Association.
Oh, yeah.
Meeting. We went to a breakfast and heard a briefing by Sarah
Peak, Representative Peak, yeah.
from Provincetown in that area. And basically was looking at the whole idea of a room tax and extending that into properties that currently aren't listed.
Vacation rentals, yeah.
Vacation.
Condo, timeshares,
Yeah.
and private rentals.
For instance, using Airbnb, and how many people are using this, and of course, they never surfaces anything. Well, all the services that we provide for these temporary residents, or there, but they never contributed toward paying for any of that. So anyway, I think it's certainly an issue that all the Cape municipalities have, and something we need to stay attuned to. It would need getting something through the state legislature. But anyway, that was an interesting and informative meeting for me, and I'll just mention it because I think it has a potential impact on our town as well.
And to follow up on that, we had a home rule petition on the agenda, on the warrant for a town meeting about 3 years ago that passed. And that was for this vacation rental tax, to make it fair, because all the others pay the tax, but there's this group that don't. Like, a best example they used was Ocean Edge. There are condos in Ocean Edge that are owned by the company, and people who rent those condos pay the rental tax. People who rent condos at Ocean Edge that are owned privately, they don't pay any tax. And so especially the lower Cape towns, not being able to collect that tax is a huge burden in a way. And so they have been the ones that have been mostly on it, but it would have a similar effect here. And you're not asking citizens here, you're not asking the residents of the town to pay the tax, it's the people who vacation here that pay the tax. And so anyway, we would be, I think Frank is going to have ready a town meeting article for the April town meeting to renew that home rule petition, because Sarah Peak indicated at the meeting last week that she was going to take all those home rule petitions and file a bill with the legislature to try to get it approved this time around. They've been trying for 4 years now, so, but who knows? So that's a story with that. Doug? Oh, go ahead. You had the floor.
I just wanted to expand, but I think it's really important for us to stay in touch with some of these broader regional organizations or collaborations, so that we understand how we can work together to potentially come up with some beneficial improvement for all of us. And I know I'm planning to go to the annual MMA meeting in January, and I know Diane has solicited our interest in participating in that. But it's been very valuable, the meetings I've gone to, and I would encourage all of you to join in. Use it as a resource.
Mm-hmm. Becky?
I've gone to a lot of meetings. It seems to me I've gone to a lot of meetings. Sam and I did a Conservation Commission walk.
Site visit.
A site visit to the cranberry bogs.
Oh.
I think there's incredible potential over there.
Coonamessett River.
Mm-hmm.
It was, and Betsy took us.
Betsy
We were
Gladfeld.
about an hour and a half, walking.
So, and some of the project money's already in place, so there's going to be some things that are going to move forward. And she did a pretty good job of explaining to us just what improvements would be brought about by just.
No, I'm saying that's, I mean, that was most beneficial for me to see how many acres and how that could really be a very vibrant camping or walking paths and just everything they have planned for out there. I went down to Barnstable to the Cape Cod Water Protection Collaborative. I always get a crazy C on there. And I made a report from Falmouth of what is happening. I go to Jerry frequently and kind of just get an update of everything, and then I make the report from there. I went into Boston last Friday on talking about sea level, and it's an initiative on the cities, and it was at BU. And the reason I wanted to go, because Mayor Menino was one of the originators of starting that whole program of initiatives in cities. It was an excellent, it lasted from 8 in the morning until 5 in the evening. And the scientists that spoke were over my head. That was just somewhere else. But the next group that came in were the businessmen in Boston. And they were insurance company or real estate, and they really had many good ideas about sea level. But of course, all of this is 30 years away, but you have to start your planning now. And the last were the residents of Boston. So the three groups were really very, very different, and then they all came together at the end of the meeting. And I have a lot of different materials I can hand to you about it. but I thought it was to think from the time that I registered, and Betsy went with me, and from the time I registered until the time I was there, to think that we had the death of Mayor Menino. And he was continuously referred to and talked about because he was so close to all of the people doing this initiative of cities, especially in Boston. I went to design review. I listened to the different petitions that they had. There was no discussion about what happened at town meeting as far as what their authority is going to be and what's going to happen. I went to beach committee, and that is probably the best meeting in town, is beach committee, and they're very loose, and they stick to an agenda. So that's kind of been my. Well, then I was up with Ray Jack for 2 hours to listen about all of this program, because that's my wastewater program. So I sat with Ray Jack for a period of time. So that's all I can think of right now.
Okay. Sam, did you still have more you wanted to say?
I've been to many meetings too, but I think I'll pass on it. For there's just work in process in a number of different places. I'm trying to be a true connection between some of these committees and, you know, how we get things done in the town. You know, CPC's one of them, the whole issue over at Lawrence Academy. But those things are just in the background.
So?
I'm going to pass.
The only thing I wanted to mention was, because it's been a while, but a number of us were at the Veterans Memorial Service on November 11th, and I found it's just, that does get bigger and bigger every year, and I thought it was fantastic this year. And about an hour beforehand, I convinced my father he should go, and it really meant a lot to him to see that big a crowd of people expressing their appreciation to the veterans for what they had done. And being one of the remaining World War II veterans, he felt very special about it, and I was glad that he was able to participate in that.
Okay, town manager's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple items, just to confirm what has been referred to. Both Town Hall and Town Administrative offices will be closed on Thursday and Friday, November 27th to 28th for the Thanksgiving holiday period. Selectmen's next regular business meeting will be Monday, December 8th, with a final anticipated business meeting for this calendar year scheduled for Monday, December 22nd. Incredibly, only 2 meetings left in the calendar year at this point scheduled. Our work continues on the FY16 operating budget. I've been joined by Heather and Jennifer Petit for the annual series of departmental budget discussion meetings. These began this past Wednesday, immediately following the conclusion of the November town meeting. If all goes as planned, I will be delivering my annual budget proposal to the Board of Selectmen just before Christmas. You will recall that the town charter provides that this budget will be transmitted to Selectmen by January 1, and further provides that the Board refer the proposed budget to the Finance Committee no later than January 16th. The Falmouth Town Charter places this process on a very fast track, as the Board is aware. The Board will also recall that with your prior authorization, I've been working with representatives of local nonprofit groups in preparation of a proposed licensing agreement for the Nobska Light property. This to be reviewed for potential approval by the U.S. Coast Guard. Work has been ongoing, extensive work in furtherance of this, with weekly meetings at the History Center. This matter is not yet complete. All appears to be coming together in reasonably good form. I do anticipate bringing a package to the Board for your review and approval during the coming month of December. Also on a fast track, so stay tuned to that. I just want to remind the Board of that important continued development. And also want to provide a brief reminder that consistent with the order from the judge about a year ago now, we will have a shutdown on Thanksgiving of both wind turbines. They'll be shut down on at 7 p.m. on Wednesday, November 26th, and will not be restarted until 7 a.m. on Friday, November 28th. Also, a quick update. It had a couple inquiries about the mulch fire on Blacksmith Shop Road at the Breivogel business, and that has been ongoing. I know I've had several emails with the Board from the onset of that. Initially, hose had to be stretched across Blacksmith Shop Road, blocking traffic. Within the past week, an alternative hose line has come through the woods to the rear, not needing to block traffic any longer, thankfully. The fire department has been out there nearly every day. There is a meeting again tomorrow morning. I spoke with the chief this evening. They have made several attempts at putting out the fire. That mulch fires are notoriously difficult to put out. It's been smoldering in spite of rain and changes in weather, and many gallons of water being poured on it. The property owner also is paid for heavy equipment to be brought onto the site to turn the piles. Progress has been made, but the fire continues in the mulch pile, the wood chip pile, to smolder. Again, not uncommon once fires of that nature start. We're talking about mulch pile depths of 30 to 50 feet. So, this is quite a daunting task. But again, there'll be a meeting tomorrow morning, and the fire department has also been in touch with the state fire marshal. So a number of people, highly professional and qualified people, are involved in this and working on it. And I also lastly want to confirm that this is burning wood products. These are not hazardous materials. While we certainly don't like the smoke continuously arising at different times depending on the wind, but it's akin to a wood fire or a burning wood in one's fireplace. That's what's being burned here, and it's not a material that is innately hazardous beyond what smoke from a wood fire would be. So that is the latest report, and the fire department through Chief Sullivan is staying closely involved with it. And we should have more information as the week continues.
Great.
Thank you. That concludes my report. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone.
And to everyone at home. Have a happy Thanksgiving and a motion to adjourn.
Move adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. We are adjourned.